First, Bonnie's presented an agenda, and we'll follow that to the best we can. Each section, we're going to give a total of 5 minutes, and then we're going to move on. Yeah, from my word, mouth to God's ears, right?
I thought 3 would work, but that's...
Okay, the first up is police.
There. The fee schedule, no changes to the fee schedule are proposed at this point, so it may just be for exhibit only. There were two, this is the things I gave you today. There are 2 outstanding justifications, one for the Planning and Inspections Department vehicle and the Finance Department's financial software. So you have those justifications now, and you should have received the justifications for all the other departmental equipment and vehicle requests on Monday. And finally, I discovered a boo-boo in the Powell bill, thanks to Carol's cogent pointing out the numbers didn't work, and I'll explain that, but that's why you have new detail sheets. It affected quite a lot. So I'll go over those when we get to the Powell bill.
Okay.
And with that, I'll turn it over to Joe and Ken.
If we've had a presentation with regard to this, to all of the budgets, and we should be familiar with what they are. I would like to start from the point of view that anybody has questions with regard to anything in the last one on the police department was 5-1, and the last submission we had was 5-1.
You're looking at. So your detail pages
budget.
from Monday night in the gray envelope. If you want to.
No, it was a group of paper you got at the last.
Starts off with town council.
It's several pages, and the one on top is town council. Okay, we've had the oral presentation, we've gotten the budget request, and does anybody have any questions with regard to either the oral presentation or the budget request
For the police
for
department.
the police department?
You're clean. You guys.
Shows squeaky clean.
Good job. Good job, Joe.
So the
Bonnie?
main thing is you want 2 vehicles. That's it. Both of them
And they both,
old, out of date, needing lots of repairs. And so the first question is, does it make any sense to postpone those for a year?
I don't think so.
that, John, that's a very good question. And I know that we have a capital improvement point. Theoretically, we should have a rolling replacement schedule. But we have successfully managed to delay vehicle purchases in the past for a year and a year. You know that. So if that can be done, it is one way to just simply extend that useful life thing. I'm not saying we wouldn't do it. At some point, obviously, you have to do it. But anything that can wait 1 more year, that's a good thing.
If,
Well,
I should
maybe.
ask this question at the beginning of Bonnie. I'm not, obviously I wasn't here last year, or the year before, the year before, the year before. One of the comments that you made to me I wanted to make sure I understood. And that was that through judicious planning in the past, we're in a position where we have money, the town's in a position through past actions to where we can cover some expenses that we have coming down the road. Am I correct in characterizing what you said?
That's correct.
Does that, now I expect, or I understand that includes not just the capital improvement items like stormwater management and that kind of thing, but it also includes capital purchases.
That's correct also.
So when we, well, the reason I'm asking the question, the reason I'm laying that foundation is the concept of, and I'm definitely not advocating that we spend money unnecessarily, but we're in a relatively good financial position at this time, and if we just keep delaying without a plan, we're just going to exacerbate that situation.
I think so, yes.
No, I wasn't suggesting that we don't have a plan. Sorry, this thing is, we need different mics.
Regarding a plan, can I insert something
No,
here?
I think I started, and I'm going to finish my
Okay.
sentence, and then I'll
Well, I
happy
was
to
trying to
turn it
help you
over.
with your thought. It's,
No, a plan is lovely, but the extent that a plan can be stretched out, that's all, I think that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So,
I would kind of put it in
The fact that we
a,
have money doesn't mean we necessarily go ahead.
what jumps out at me, it seems that is whatever purchases we agree to for this cycle, that we should have sort of a you know, lifespan, life cycle type of plan for all of our major pieces of equipment that we have, whether it's police, fire, public works and that are programmed out. Now, we all know that if you talk about a vehicle, things can happen very quickly that change it. But it's a plan. It gives us a place to go out there so we have a sense of what kind of financial commitments that we're gonna have over time. And you know, I think my observation is we don't appear to have that right now, that I recognize.
Mayor, can I ask a question, please? Really for everybody on the table, front table. I'm looking at the two replacement cars, the new ones, would be the same Ford Interceptors, and they've replaced the two older Crown Vics. And I can see the mileage that you're showing, 110 in one and 81,000 on another, and I can respect the fact that we're a small town. That's local mileage for the most part, which is extremely hard. My question, and it goes to what Carol was talking about, and John has now highlighted as well. I'm looking on the capital improvements plan, and I see 72,000 budgeted in the proposed budget for 2018, the year we're about to start. I also see nothing budgeted, or I see the same amount, 73,000 budgeted for 2019 fiscal year, and so on and so on and so on. How many vehicles do we have in the police department right now? All right,
How
so
many?
we're 10.
10.
So we're looking at so we're looking at a rolling replacement for patrol cars, vehicles of 2 per year approximately. So that would tell me that we expect to get 5 years out of a new vehicle.
We can get more out of the administrative vehicles, the chief and detective vehicles. They don't get driven as much or as often. It's a lot easier on those. That's why the burgundy car, the 2008 Crown Victoria, has been around longer. And if you've noticed the past few years, those unmarked vehicles that get changed, they're much older than the other ones. So they'll last longer. So on a proper, I feel on a proper plan that every other year or every few years we can get by with one vehicle, because those, or maybe every 2 years, and we've been talking about getting on a plan such as that for many years,
It's important we do.
but
It's
we haven't done it.
forward thinking.
You know, there's been times where we really need to this year, and we'll put off and start the improvement plan or the plan next year. So those have been, that's been done. I think if we replace these two this year, then we're pretty much set up on continuing a proper plan. The Burgundy 2008 Crown Victoria, you know, I mean, it's 2008, over 100,000 miles. It's a non-police package vehicle. So we'll finally have gotten rid of all the non-police package vehicles except for my truck, but you know, it doesn't get driven in pursuit of anybody or anything. But so then we'll have all the patrol and detective vehicles, police package vehicles, and I think on the way to a good.
So we're looking at a,
Proper
we're looking at a
replacement plan.
marked and an unmarked as
Yes.
replacements now. Okay.
Why do,
That's all my questions I have.
why do you need them all police package vehicle equipped? If this is if that particular vehicle is used for the administrative staff and the detective division or whatever, why does it need that extra stuff?
The detectives at any point in time are out in the field working and could possibly need that pursuit package on those vehicles. A non-pursuit vehicle, if you get in a pursuit with it, it's not rated to be driven that way. I don't,
Are either of these your car?
Or not that are being replaced, ma'am.
Okay.
But if I may, additionally, the police package, other than being pursuit rated, they have better brake systems on them, better transmissions on them, better wiring, so that all the equipment that's in the vehicles, the radios, the lights, the sirens, if you were to put that type of equipment in a regular civilian SUV or sedan, it would wear down those components. So they're kind of beefed up in a police package. So for excessive idling, you know, lower speeds, more drain on the battery, these cars are better equipped to handle that.
But these cars are used, in fact, for, you know, pursuits and police actual
Police functions.
activity. Okay.
Absolutely.
I didn't have a problem with it.
I have a process question.
Go ahead.
Are we going to do a quick review of all this again, and then at some point, are you going to lay out, okay, this is our recommendation? And so I guess the real question is, at what point do we say yay or nay to something? Until we look at the whole
Right now.
package.
Right, well, what I envisioned is we're gonna do that today.
I know, but is that this afternoon, or is that right now?
That
I
would
mean,
be-
do we
Well-
decide department by department that we've approved
I
those
think
things?
we should do yay or nay now, and then depending on the final results,
Yeah.
that could conceivably, it could cause a relook.
So if we go yay or nay now, and we end up toward the end of the day that we have overspent, then we will have to go back and look down,
Then you have to,
prioritizing
then
what
you
we
have to go
cut.
back and review it,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just making sure we know where we're going here.
If I could make a suggestion, Bob, because we're repeating stuff that
Yeah.
we already heard, and I don't want to get down into the real weeds again, but philosophically, we have a strong, right now we have I don't want to call it a surplus, but right now we have a surplus of around 389,000. My fear has always been, because we have the money, we should spend it. And we are going to have critical issues in the future, and I think we have to be mindful to try not to do everything in 1 year. I don't know how to do that, okay? I'll be very honest with you. I don't have any difficulty with the police department. But when you look at the summary page and some of the variances, the summary page that I have is dated draft budget 5/1, and you know, we have to, my preference would be to go over the summary. We've already went through each department. I don't know, I'll be very honest with you, I don't know really what's in it, what's not. I don't know if there's a sweeper in there anymore or not. I know
Rich.
there's 2 trucks.
We ought to be, you need to do that. There are things
Okay.
in there that we need to
All right, but
actually
then,
discuss.
then we can go through the summary, because the summary,
Yeah, I understand.
thank you.
Let's ask an overview question. I think John made a very valid point here. And I think, Bonnie, you indicated in a prior meeting that this was tax rate adjustment neutral. In other words, 16 cents per $100 of assessed value
That's
in,
correct.
in what's being presented.
Mhm.
So that at least gives us a baseline. Now, I think every one of us up here would like to lower the tax rate. And that's what we keep in our mind. I would hope that nobody has the attitude that just because it's on the budget and it's 16 cents that we want to stay there. So I think it's important we look at each department
That's
and
absolutely
get
correct.
justification on each department as to what they're doing.
Completely, I completely
Bon-
agree.
Bonnie, the statement that it's tax rate neutral still remains.
It is this
No.
is, the ad valorem tax line in revenue is based on a 16-cent
Right,
tax
but
rate.
I mean, with the changes that have happened in the 3 days we've been doing this,
Right, the
nothing's-
revenue actually is the only thing that hasn't changed. So it's the same. The revenue items that you were presented with a week ago are the same.
Well,
Yes.
we still have two items for revenue, though, that we are still trying to feel the pulse as to what's happening in Raleigh.
Correct.
And in the county. One is the sales tax and one is the fire fee.
Mhm.
Are there any others that are of significance?
Not that I'm aware.
Not that I'm aware.
Mayor, what do you think?
But Pete, excuse me real quick, the fire may not come about for 2 more months.
Well, the fire, if there is an adjustment in fire fees, and the chief is going to address this when the fire department gets up here, but there is going to be an increase likely in the fire fees to us, but we're not going to see a penny of that until January. So we're not going to get that until the second half of the tax year we're talking about right now. The most we could ever recoup, if it does go up, is half of how much it goes up over a year.
It's the same,
Prorated.
it's the
Yes.
same, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's Rich asked me this question, and I emailed an answer to him a couple days ago. My understanding, the fire fee is set by the county. It comes out on the county tax bills that come out in July. So whatever the fire district fee is going to be will be billed to property owners in July. That's due in September. Now, most people don't pay it, the majority, at least I don't pay it, until December because there's no penalty for not paying it, which is exactly the same as the ad valorem tax. It's in the same category by of payment schedule. Am I right?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your statement.
The county bills the fire district fee the same time it bills the real property taxes. And that bill comes out in July. It's due in September. Most people pay it by December. We get payments from the county on the fire district fee quarterly. So the first payment would probably be after the first of the year, but it'd be for 2 quarters.
It'd be for March, it'd be for January, February, and March, and we'd get it at the end of March. Or
If
get
they
it
I don't,
publish-
no, I
in the
don't.
first quarter.
No, I
Yeah.
think you're wrong. Susan?
I'm just going to pull you back to the police department, and we do have revenue on here in the future. I also want to caution you that, I wouldn't get too worried about the revenue because it's a conservative projection. If we do have a drastic loss or gain, we will address it at that time. I don't think now is the time to
Yeah.
stall what you're going to do forward, because we can make adjustments in the future.
Agree.
All right, so I have a question. Let's say they pass the fire fees in
Let's
January.
talk about it when we get the fire department up here, maybe. I think that's where Susan's going.
Actually, I was going to revenue in the afternoon, but that's okay.
Okay, but in going through this, I want to know this. If they change the thing in January, you said they publish the things in July.
They're not,
Does this mean it
they're
won't
not
take
gonna change, it has to
Wait a
be
minute.
changed, it has to be changed by the end of June. If it's gonna change, it has to be done by the
So
end
my
of June.
question is, if they don't change it by the end of June, let's say it's adjusted next January, we're not going to get.
It won't be adjusted next
Can I
January.
finish my question? We're not going to see a bill change until the following July, is that correct?
No.
Yeah,
No.
the bill, your
No, the
tax
bill that comes
bills
out
go
in this
out
July will
in
be
July.
changed.
If it's not changed before July, you won't see any change until
all,
the
right.
next
Till the
July.
following July,
Correct.
right.
July, yeah.
That's the next budget
January has
cycle.
nothing to do with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, that's just
Back to the
receipts.
police.
Yeah, that's when we get the money, though.
Okay, back to police.
I have no trouble with the police budget, Mr. Mayor.
Joe, I want to ask you a question, because I see that your budget for maintenance is what it is, but the
Yes, sir.
overall maintenance in this town is $65,000. Is that put out to bid, Bonnie, or do we pick and choose who does what?
What kind of maintenance? We have
Yeah.
vehicle and equipment. Which kind of
Because
maintenance?
I've seen our cops at Napa a lot, the cars at Napa a lot.
You're talking about vehicle
Right.
maintenance.
Is it out to bid, or is that just
Well,
something
it's
we
not-
just
it's a-
normally give to Napa?
It's not a, well, go ahead.
We have in the, years ago, we were required to do that, but, Calabash Auto always won out on the pricing. So we pretty much use them.
But do we
For
check
the
on them
bulk of it.
occasionally, and make sure that they're doing the right job for the right price?
Oh, they're definitely, and with tires, we do it at Black's Tires. They're the only ones around who have the tires that are required for our vehicles, on the state contract.
Okay.
So they provide them at state contract price and do the mounting and balancing, and Calabash Auto does most of the other.
The vehicles purchased under state contract?
Well, last year, we actually went to the North Carolina Sheriff's Association contract. We saved about $300.
All right, well, but we use we use an entity, we just don't go out to
Yes,
the
sir.
dealership and, okay.
One item too, I guess this is probably for Bonnie. I'm looking at workman's comp under police, and I'll only ask this question under this department, and I assume it's the same for other departments. It's gone down 50%. Workman's comp is based on anticipated need for people drawing from the fund, I assume.
Yes and no. We pay an annual premium, and I actually need to use this time to tell you what happened with both workman's comp and property liability. The reason it went down is not because the premium was less. The reason it went down is that the premium was allocated, I believe, incorrectly in the past. The workman's comp particularly is made up of components of payroll, and for some reason, the police department was more heavily weighted as a portion, as a percentage of the premium than it should have been. So it's actually, you'll see the property liability is towards the bottom. Each department has liability insurance, and there are a number of variances in that line item as well. And next to the property liability, or the liability insurance increase, decrease column, it says reallocation. The same thing happened with workman's comp also.
Yeah, Bonnie, on the summary page, we normally spent, last year we budgeted 121K for the entire town. The actual expenses projected is to be 115, and so we have basically like a surplus, the variance of 66K less this year than last year.
Because we had the actual payroll, it's based on a projected payroll.
Right.
And the actual payroll was significantly less than
Because we had
anticipated.
vacancies.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. I just saw the workman's comp was down significantly, 50% in police, streets, fire, and I started looking at it, and it just didn't make sense to me. That's why I asked the question. You've answered it
Yes.
very clearly. Thank you.
This hardware printer thing, which is, it's $1,800 a year, is that, what's the story with that? We can't purchase something outright?
It's,
Spending $1,800 a year for, it says upgrade hardware printer?
they're actually in the police department, if I'm not confused with another department, we had very little equipment.
We had old printers. The only new piece of equipment we've had for several years is the Kyocera copier printer that's in the room y'all use.
Are we paying it? We don't own it?
I think we own all that equipment, and they have an agreement to upkeep it, I think.
Most of the coppers are leased anyway, not.
In this case, I think correct me if I'm wrong, we do own the copiers, and then our monthly charges are to maintain the copiers and also to provide supplies,
Well,
toner.
going back to the police department, there's not, as I read this, there's no cost in here for the purchase of a copier. It's just a reallocation of,
Well, we
a
already
reclassification.
have that one.
Well, the upgrade
It's
of
the
where it
printers.
says to the right, upgrade
Oh,
hardware
yeah, okay,
printer
all right,
at $150 a month, That's for 3 printers. That seems like a lot, but if we continue to use the old stuff that we've got, I don't know how much printing you do at home, but you go through the ink like crazy. And this is going to be
New inks are 50% more efficient.
right. This is
It's-
going to be much more efficient
May I
going this
suggest
route.
in the future that we do this on an annual basis and not a monthly basis? We show the annual cost.
Sure, yeah. I mean, as far as the description goes, sure.
Where,
mhm.
where is that? You said it's reclassified and there's no line item for
It's
that.
under contract services,
It's in
under police.
contract service.
Okay,
It's out in the right
Okay.
margin.
And
That
the-
150 a month, Bonnie, is strictly for the fire, I mean, police department?
That's correct. If you, do you remember the sheet that,
You had something on contract services, so you basically split out
right,
for each department. So maybe we're really paying, $10,000 a year.
well, it's actually
all
quite a
of
bit
the
more than
machines.
that. If you look at there was a single sheet that you received on Monday, and we also looked
Yes.
at it, I think, on Thursday. And the line for that is Integrity, the vendor for that is Integrity.
Mhm.
And there's, let's see, 17.
$21,400.
Okay, thank you.
So that amount has been split up among the various departments.
Correct. Mhm. Based on the actual equipment.
all right, any other questions?
Go catch the bad guys.
All right,
What what does council think?
I would like to have just a straw position on, I say a straw position because we have to see what the final result is. But as far as the presentation of the budget, what they've requested in the budget, what's the feeling of council, at least at this point?
Go. Good.
I'm satisfied with the breakdown.
Okay.
If I may, before we walk
Sure.
away. The only,
more.
I'm sorry?
You're asking for more.
I am. But the only concern I have is, we talked about when we met, a couple weeks ago about overtime. And we made a slight adjustment in overtime. But as I'm looking going forward, we currently have an employee who's on light duty, which is costing overtime to replace this employee. That same employee his fiance is due to have a child within the next couple of days, which is again gonna extend his absence. So my only concern is I'm fearful that we may not have allocated enough overtime to cover for that absence. We have another employee whose wife is expecting a child in short order as well. So not knowing what we're gonna see going into this next fiscal year with injuries, with FMLA leaves or whatever else we may have, I'm just concerned that we may have to come back and ask for more money.
Is
at a
there any
later date.
overtime, chief, in the budget as it stands right now?
Yes, sir, there
Okay.
is.
That's in the salaries and wages line?
It is.
Okay.
It's in there now.
If someone is out sick, just a regular day, someone's out sick, do you have to pay someone overtime?
It depends on the amount of persons that are scheduled for that day. So we wouldn't want to have one patrol officer in Sunset Beach by themselves. So if that were the case, by the sickness, yes, we'd have to pay somebody overtime to come in and
So
replace.
police officers get maternity leave in this town?
I'm sorry?
They get maternity leave for their wives?
Under FMLA, yes, they're entitled to.
How long
There-
is that?
it's
How many
not-
weeks is that?
Well, they can take vacation or sick. It's not paid maternity leave,
Right.
but they're allowed to be out.
They can
Under the
allocate it towards
FMLA,
that
they're allowed
cause.
to take the
12
time
weeks.
off and use their own vacation and sick
Right.
day
A-
to
accrued leave.
cover it.
A total of 12 weeks per year,
I'm all in favor of it.
but it's at their dime.
And as to
12
whether,
weeks they're unpaid, right?
and as to whether it's overtime or not, it depends upon how many hours that person has accrued during that week or month, however it's tracked, as
All
to
right.
whether it's overtime or
All right,
straight
I
time.
understand the chief's position to be that he's satisfied with the budget, but he just didn't want to leave any misunderstandings that he may have an overtime issue.
Right, so only if we have to come back later and
Yeah.
I don't want to make it look like we under budgeted.
Right.
No,
I
that's,
wouldn't worry about it, and there should be enough flexibility in the thing anyway.
yeah, that's
You
fine.
need it, you need it, and I wouldn't be concerned. You've
Okay.
never had.
And the issue with really not knowing what it's going to take, we've been so understaffed, for the past few years, been trying to figure out how to allocate for
But you're staffed
overtime.
now.
But we're fully staffed now.
I wouldn't worry.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up, though.
That beat feet before we have more questions.
Hey, Rich and Mark, whoever did this, when you looked into these microphones? Did anybody look into
Lapel.
something that you can just clip on so you don't have to deal with any
We
of
have,
this?
They
I'm
recommend-
finding this so cumbersome, it's in my way, is my problem.
Well, they just found that the ones that are here on the Appel, it's muffled a lot because you get too close to it. These are the state of the art, these are the ones they recommended.
They're cumbersome. They're, as I said, they're always on top of my
We
papers or in
really
the way.
I listened to YouTube the other day. We have to do a better job of putting our face into the mic. We really do.
I'm saying,
It's-
and it's always, it's
I
never
know.
where I need it.
this is the, which you want. This is fire now. Okay, next is fire. We dispense with the preliminaries with the police department. Council members have questions with regard to the request from the fire department.
I guess one question I have is, police department theirs sort of on a contract basis? How do you get your vehicles?
Through the same contract.
Same contract?
We use the North Carolina Sheriff's Association. We've done state contract, but the Sheriff's Association is cheaper price, and we are allowed to use it also. We go
And
through the
then
same
your
thing.
vehicles are also
Everything that they-
with a
we-
fire package? or-
Everything that we got in the past, anything that's available on the state contract, is usually available on the sheriff's contract. So, except for the large fire trucks, they're not available.
Kevin, I just have one simple question, and I don't mean to get into the weeds, but when I look at the projected expense for gas and oil last year, in fiscal year 17, it was 11.9, and now we're asking 21.7.
Well, they asked for 21, they got 21.7.
Well,
They only spent 11.
Right, that's what he said. He didn't
Yeah.
say it as artfully as you, but that's what he said. Go ahead.
What did I say
You
different?
know, you-
Actually,
No. Anyway,
ahead.
now they're
You said
back
it.
to the 21. Do we have a reason to think that?
Yeah, no, I'm
gas
just-
oil is gonna jump again?
I mean, oil
It's
is,
gonna go up. I think it's gonna go up, but
well,
I think Richard's
Actually-
question is, if we budgeted 21 and you only spent 11,
Let-
why?
let him
I
answer.
think this is, I need to go and look. This is a very good point this is a good point that you made, Rich. It looks skewed. So, if I may, while you are talking with Richard and Kevin, I'm gonna go look at that number in my spreadsheets. It doesn't look like a good number. I agree. It looks skewed.
Yeah, I'm just raising.
The
it's fine.
projected, if we are asking, if the fire department is asking for the same number as what was budgeted last year, we would have to be projecting roughly the same number, and it's half.
Unless fuel goes up, it doubles. Unless fuel were
No,
to
but
double.
then that would be reflected throughout,
Mhm.
and it isn't, and I think I made a boo-boo.
Okay,
So if I may.
you're excused.
Okay.
But just, Bonnie, I can save you a trip, because I have my printout, recent printout.
With the
And
projected.
in
cost.
as of last month, we'd spent $13,000 on fuel. And we're getting ready to go into, we're starting to get busier and busier right now. We have about $6,000 left budgeted for
you
the
have
rest of
7
the.
weeks left in the
Yeah,
year.
and we have $6,000 left in the budget for fuel and oil. And right now, we're starting our water season, and we switch over to a more expensive gas because we run ethanol free. So there's a little, during the winter months, it goes down because we're not spending money on ethanol.
So what you're saying is
Yes.
that the projection is not an accurate number?
Correct.
It's way off. So you're right on that. That was.
So we would
Okay.
add
But
the
projection
projected
should
column.
be higher.
Higher.
Yes.
Yeah,
Another,
closer to
it
what
should be
the
another
budgeted was.
$10,000.
Yeah.
Another $10,000. So the total fiscal 17 projected column will increase by $10,000.
But
I
that
am-
still doesn't affect the 2018 recommended. It's
Correct.
All those numbers are clean.
That's correct.
Other
But I
questions?
am still surprised. 15, FY 15, actual was 16,314. All these prices have dropped so dramatically. Since then, I'm surprised that it's up at all and not lower than fiscal 15.
Are we talking about fuel?
We're talking about, gas and oil. So to me, it's illogical, but, gas
It
is
goes
twice as
back,
expensive.
it goes back and forth so much. I mean, like, the other day I filled up for 206. That was
Look,
a week ago.
I'm not gonna bicker over $5,000 difference,
But this week, you know, I'm paying $216 again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one of those things that just trying to figure it, is it gonna go to $3? You know, are we gonna have a conflict in the Middle East again that's gonna cause us to go way up again?
I assume you're not gonna be filling up 1 million canisters and storing them and think just in case gas goes up.
No, but we do.
If you don't
but
spend
that's-
all of that money, it's just money that will
that's-
appear in the budget.
I'm
But
not-
that's what we do. We do have 2 cabinets full of fuel, but that's the small, you know, do the small equipment that we have.
Mine was a
I'm,
joke.
I'm not,
But that's where the ethanol fuel is.
I'm not proposing this, but there is a way of dealing with it. I'm not proposing it because I don't want to reinvent the wheel. We used to purchase it in bulk, and we had our own gas pump for the DPW and police department and the fire company. So there's a way, there's a way to deal with price fluctuation, but I'm not advocating that here. I don't want to reinvent the
You
wheel.
probably have a size and efficiency factor that goes into that. in
Well,
terms
you-
of the
you may-
expense of-
Mayor, just so I can, you may see a reduction next year. I don't know what the price is yet. We're still messing around, but we are buying fuel back from the county again, which they buy it in bulk,
Okay.
and we get it at the
Okay.
station.
Is there any way to piggyback with the EMS?
That's where we're doing it with right now. We're going through the county, and we're filling at the EMS station, but in the rare occasion that place is down, you know, we'll be able to go to the other stores. Problems with the other stores was they had no generator backup. So now we're got a solid fuel source all the time.
All right, other questions? All right, with regard to the capital requests,
Talk to us about the roof. 500
Actually,
It looks fine. It really does.
$500,000?
Ask Councilman Benton, he was up on it, day before yesterday, and, it looks
The
fine.
roof needs to be fixed. You know, the basics of the roof is structure is fine. They put seams in it, they didn't caulk it right or put the right material in there, it was done improperly. And
But
you
I'm
can
just
see the
amazed at
leaks.
Cost.
Well, I think the cost is a number that they're putting out there. It could be $100,000.
Well,
They
I
have to
mean,
go out
and
to bid.
I shared this with Councilman Benton. This is the only, we've had 6 people on top of that roof. None of them came back with anything, not one piece of paper.
Susan?
I just want to point out, if we're there, for the, we just put in for this fiscal year, this upcoming fiscal year, $50,000 for the engineering, structural engineering to review and
That's
make a
right, that's right.
recommendation.
You're right.
What I did notice is that the $500,000 that we had put in place for fiscal year 19 is missing.
Right. Take it out.
And again, that's just
Right.
that's just an earmark.
Yeah,
That's
at
just,
the-
Bonnie said that last Monday, that you were
yeah.
gonna
Well,
I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that.
But how do we deal with that? If we don't have a placeholder for it, how do we deal with it?
We go through this budget process again, and we'll have the structural engineering report, and we can come mid-year, or we can come at next fiscal year, and we'll have this discussion again.
Because Pete,
The-
the only
the
way you
only-
look at that roof and see if you can put a rubber roof over that.
Yeah, I've been
you have
on
that
it.
engineer has to go out there and study the weight.
The only thing I want to point out, we're going to do a study. We're going to have an engineer come in, he's going to tell us what we need to do.
And
The
Chief, that'll
entire-
give us that's what we're relying on to give us the information, I assume.
But just to point out, the entire time we're doing that, it's raining inside my building. Yeah, we've already got one wall that needs to be replaced. So I'm just pointing that out.
When's
Every
the engineer
time it
coming out,
rains.
Kevin?
What's
When's the
that?
engineer coming out, Susan?
We have it
You
out.
have to put out the RFQ after July 1st. You have to fund it first. You have to adopt this budget so
Yeah,
we
it's
can
not,
move
it's not
forward.
budgeted yet.
Get it done.
correct.
Yeah, I mean,
I-
we have extra money in this current budget. Can we vote right now and say, go ahead and do it?
It's not on
It's
the
on-
Well,
agenda.
you can't do it
Right,
right now,
it's,
but you
well,
need.
it's the capital
No, but we can
projects.
direct her to prepare an RFP for the next meeting.
Right.
The way that the agenda, it's out there. Right now, on the capital projects, or the capital improvement plan list, it's in the not budgeted column. If you want to wait until we get to the capital projects, that would be probably topic number 1, is whether to go ahead with the 50,000 this year at least, and based on everything else that's come before, and we'll look at all the capital items on that list.
Good.
All right,
That's
so
what
then,
I'm-
let's,
so-
let's,
But to answer your question, we can do it.
Susan?
Also, at the next meeting at June 1st, we'll we should actually, by the end of today, get a feel whether or not you wish to proceed with the engineering study. It'll take some time to write the RFQs, but we can get it out the door July 1st. We can't really do it any sooner because of publication and bid requirements.
Okay.
Does that mean we can't do it with this year's budget?
Actually, by the time I publish it, advertise it, write it, it's already going to be July.
So the
There's
answer
no
is no.
reason
The
to.
answer is
There's
no.
no reason to.
Practically,
is no.
it has nothing to
No.
do with
It's
the
not
budget.
gonna, it's not gonna fall within this fiscal
It
year.
doesn't really matter,
Okay.
because if there's a surplus in the current budget, which could have funded that, that same surplus will still be in our general fund.
I know, Carol,
at
but
the
the thing
beginning
is,
of
we're,
fiscal year.
by it raining inside the building, we're incurring more cost,
I-
more problems.
I
So,
agree.
there's no way, Susan, we can get that out there as an emergency? I know, I'm saying, because, you know, he's saying the wall's being damaged, inside's being damaged.
Oh, that wall, that's part of that 500,000, is that wall's gonna have to be replaced along with the insulation that
That's
was
sheetrock.
there.
I mean, I
Yeah,
understand.
I mean, it's done. It needs to be, it's already falling down.
So Mark is asking, is there any way to push the schedule up?
You have advertising requirements and publication requirements because of the size of what we think the contract will be, which is over 30,000, which is over my threshold to issue without those bid processes.
So even in an, it can't be considered in an emergency?
No, but we will be ready to go July 1st or July 2nd. And I'll, you know, I'm not gonna, there's emergency, then there's emergency. Okay?
Yeah.
I get,
Right.
the
That's
the
a nice
basic
way to
question
put
I
it.
have on that, though, is 50,000 for an engineering study of the roof of a building realistic? I mean, that seems to be really expensive to me, for the engineering study.
Turn
I
around
mean,
to our engineer.
Not for a structural engineer, I don't think so.
It's a, I've used the term before, it's a placeholder. It may come back as not being anywhere close to that. It may come back as being,
Okay.
for somebody to do a structural analysis of that roof, it's gonna take a while. It isn't just inspecting it to see what needs to be replaced. It's doing a complete analysis with the beam spans, looking at the load requirements. It's involved.
Wouldn't we
It's-
have most of that stuff from the initial building plan, the contractor,
you'd-
when it was done?
You'd think.
But in any
Yeah.
event, the number of 50,000 it's not
Is
going to
okay.
exceed that. The number's there, so it wouldn't exceed it.
Well, we hope it doesn't
Yeah.
exceed. If
Well-
it does, we'd come back to the
Yeah.
council.
Okay.
But what a plan says and how a thing is built, generally two different ways. Because I suspect the design
The reason why it's a problem.
and how it was installed may not,
They may not agree.
yes.
Okay, getting back to the other, anybody have any question on the other capital items they were requesting?
No, he made his case the last time.
Yeah.
That's why,
Again, though, I'd like to see, you know, in the future, a life cycle kind of projection out for vehicles and that. I know the fire engines don't hit that, but.
Oh,
you
no,
know,
there,
other big
I
pieces of
have
equipment.
a plan. I've shared it with Bonnie.
Okay.
And my plan's right on, and with the purchase of that other fire truck, where, you know, and since we did a loan, we're on a 5-year cycle right there. You know, I mean, we're gonna pay off another loan before we even approach you about coming after another big ticket like that. And I'm gonna be coming after you in 5 years, because, you know, we're gonna be looking, and he saw we went through the building the other day, and Councilman Benton can back me up. You know, when you're looking at a 2001, it looks great, but you get in it and drive it and look underneath it, you can see what the environment we live in does to a vehicle.
When
And
you purchase vehicles, do you get special undercoating because we're in such a,
And that was not available through the state contract until last year. Last year, we started undercoating and coating the back. So we have a new vehicle that we bought in 2015 that was undercoated, and it is doing very well. We have a couple wheel well issues that we're gonna deal with, but so far, so good. We have not. Usually, we see rust at
Yeah,
this
no,
point because it is
I-
on the beach.
like I said earlier, you know, we seem to have the money to spend and we're doing everything it seems to me we're doing everything in 1 year. We've needed software for years. I don't have an issue with that. We needed record keeping to modernize our record keeping system. We've been putting that off for years. And I don't mind doing the things that we put off for years. What I concerned about is that if there's anything that we can defer to reduce the one-shot expenses this year, that's where I'm gonna need some help with the council. And some of them could be, we have $45,000 to paint the exterior of Town Hall.
Okay, Rich.
You
Let's
know,
just stay
let's
on
stay on
Rich,
topic.
let's just
So-
stick
I
to-
No,
understand,
no,
I
so
understand.
there's gotta be some
Let-
swapping somewhere, if you follow what I'm
Chief,
saying.
let me ask a question regarding the budget, and I'm not gonna try to go on to the capital improvement plan. I'm not really, I don't wanna get into the minutia on that, but it does look like there's a rolling replacement in 2020, where we're talking about a Tahoe for you for this year, or coming up year. Is that?
Actually, that is the other Tahoe that we
okay,
have.
that's what I wanted to have
And,
clarified. It's not
as
your
I
vehicle.
explained to you, NFPA 1810, and I know you've seen, and I'm following it more closely than you are probably, but the Firefighters Cancer Acts, they have determined that driving in the compartment with your turnout gear is hazardous to your health because you're still inhaling the contaminants that are on you, and they have led to testicular cancer, which we have had a case of already. And these are some of the cancers that
So
come
what
out.
do they want you to do?
They want it outside the
Pick up
They
compartment.
want it in a trunk or something.
They're recommending that we stop using SUVs and storing our gear inside of them. So what I'm doing is I'm phasing out our SUVs and going to pickup trucks
Gotcha.
with a camper shell,
That
so the
makes
gear's
sense.
stored on the outside of it. So I'm
So-
not in a hurry to do that with that last Tahoe, so we got some time on it because we're just gonna try to put the mileage on it, not use it as
Very
a first
logical.
responder.
For the benefit of council also, and correct me if I'm wrong, the 3/4 ton pickup truck is in beach, not in
Yes, sir, that is
fire.
definitely for
Okay.
beach patrol.
Okay, now, is everybody,
I have one
Go ahead.
question. There's leftover from the radios that you're replacing all. Is it, am I reading this right, that it's about $5,800 a radio?
It's more around,
Mu-
5,000 for the radio, but you have the accessory mic.
Okay.
So it
But a
runs
but a
right
package
about
that
there.
goes with it, okay. And
Yeah.
we're gonna do this over several years.
Well, you
Do all
got a
41 radios.
programming cost in there also. So, I mean, they have to be programmed when we buy them. They don't come programmed.
all right, the
So-
straw,
I got one question.
go ahead.
Kevin said, so let me get this straight. You're saying the Tahoe that you're requesting this year, you do not want now?
No, the 2020 Tahoe. There's another Tahoe in 2020.
On the
There's
next
one this
okay,
year,
I
and
see,
then there's
okay.
one in 2020.
so-
But it's not the same vehicle.
Right, I
No,
understand. I
we've
got it.
deferred.
I got it. But the thing is, right now, you're asking for a Tahoe. You're gonna switch that to a pickup.
Yeah, we're going to a less expensive pickup truck.
Okay. And I just say, Rich, I looked at his Tahoe, and it was not undercoated, and it is all rusted out. So I think it's,
I mean, that's an
You
08
convinced
that
me.
was
That
bought,
was-
you know, and it wasn't like the police department. Our vehicles are so, an SSV, not a police package for pursuit, but we have heavier duty brakes, we have the bigger alternators, we have the wiring preset for the sirens, the lights. So in the same aspect as theirs, we're not set pursuit rated because we're four-wheel drive on ours, but we do have the same type package that they have as far as lighting and the other stuff. The suspension is a little different also, but it makes the vehicles last a little longer.
Remember that old thing when you think you've got what you want?
All right, on the budget and the capital items, the straw vote of the council at this time?
Aye.
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 Okay. The, were you planning to leave?
Do you need me to stay?
Well, there was a question that was raised earlier about the fire fees.
Come back after lunch for revenue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
That'd be fine.
And Rich,
I'll
thank
be
you
here
for
at
that
lunch, so-
for-
And Assistant Chief, you might need some more sunblock when you're out there playing on the beach in the afternoon. They were doing training yesterday and the day before out with the jet skis.
Just a note.
By the
uh,
way, you're always welcome if you need, to use, I've told you that before, you can always use, always. Be my guest. I'm never out there. Be my guest.
Just a small fee, though.
No,
Bonnie, did you have something?
I do.
I used it one day to push myself off.
Remind you, you have beach patrol accommodations probably a little sooner than revenue.
Yeah, yeah, Richard.
I'll be in the,
I just want to make a note, the radios are going to be, need to be added to the, in the out, what am I trying to say? Fiscal 19, 20, and 21, I need to add the radios to the capital improvement plan.
Okay.
For the,
The other
at that
30
58,
radios.
250, yeah, yeah.
And I assume, Susan, we're gonna talk about this fire law blog that the fire chief passed out in a later session. Okay? So I need to keep it.
All right, on planning and inspections, anybody have a question with regard to the line items?
all right, I'm gonna raise something, and you're all gonna hate me for this, and I'm sorry, but I'm gonna raise it anyway. You have a position, I know, Susan, you said you weren't filling it, but is it in this budget?
Yes.
Okay, and
It is
under
in
our
this-
personnel rules, you know, if you went out.
Let's be
and
clear for
just
the
filled
public
that
as to what
thing-
position you're talking about.
Pardon?
Be clear to the public as to what position you're talking about, please.
The assistant planning director
Okay?
is the position I'm talking about.
I don't think so. I think you're
No,
talking
it
about a
was the
GSI.
GIS
Well, is
planner.
there-
GIS.
well, all right, so what's the title? So there is no
GIS
assistant-
planner,
So there's no assistant planning director position, it's the GIS planner.
yes,
That's what I'm talking about.
yes.
I would like to see that position eliminated.
Can we speak to that later? Because I'd like to convert it, because you're going to need a stormwater manager field and
Well, that's one of the
person.
reasons.
When you say convert, do you
Will-
mean combine?
No, well, convert it, we're going to go off topic here. Convert it into another position, i.e. not making a new position, but moving that range into a different department.
Different
In
department.
other words, staffing stays at
I
44 or whatever it is.
Yeah, I
but-
convert it to a different, I eliminate the GIS planner.
I got it.
convert it into a stormwater manager, field inspection
So
person.
for purposes of this budget, I'd like to see that removed from this thing now, so we know what the numbers are.
And we will do that. I was going to request that at the time we got to that point on the agenda.
Well, you were asking what I objected to in this particular budget, and that's what I'm objecting to, so.
Okay?
Susan, looking at the schedule, where will we do that?
Under Public Works.
Okay,
Oh, I was wondering, okay.
That's what I thought, okay.
Now it's making sense. Public
Okay.
Works, yes, and that does make sense.
Yes.
all right, any other,
So if you need a vote on that, we can do that, but I'd like to delete on the salaries, or just that position.
If Carol's asking for a vote, I have a discussion point for Susan. I feel we need the GSI,
GIS.
GIS program. I
And
should know that.
I am writing a, actually, Hiram does do GIS, and we've trained Dustin, but what the stormwater manager part of that job is working within GIS. We built our entire stormwater analysis within GIS.
So we're not talking about doing away with the GIS
No,
program. We're talking
absolutely
about
not.
doing away with a dedicated individual to operate it.
Wear
Or
two
to,
hats.
This person will have to be able to, when they're in the field, when they uncover a pipe and they take it out, they're gonna do as-built pictures, who, when, what date it was installed. I mean, it's gonna have to be maintained, and the stormwater manager, that is that
so
part of
so
that
the
job.
features and benefits of the GIS program is going to still be maintained, but it'll be in another department.
Well, I'll speak, if you don't mind, Hiram. The GIS is much bigger than stormwater. You have fire hydrants,
I
you
know,
have,
I
yes,
know,
and
I know.
Hiram has that capacity to assist us in that matter.
Okay, okay.
So it's not going away, if you wish to speak.
I
now.
just don't want to lose the benefit of that process.
Absolutely not. We've invested in it. We need to move forward on
The
it.
program still exists. It may be parts of it may be administered by a different position, but the program still exists.
And I understand where Carol's going here. So that's about, let's put it in the right basket. And
Yeah, and I just couldn't do it until we talked about it.
That's okay, so it'll go in the public works bid.
So what does that mean? You're gonna take X number of dollars out of, planning and inspections, salaries, and move it into,
Well, it'd be
Public
under
Works.
Public Works, but it'd be as the position
So the FY '88, 277,000 for salaries will drop, and then a plus-up will go into the other department.
There won't be any net gain, it'll
Yeah,
just move.
just move it in different places.
Yes.
What is this, built-in
Can,
flexibility? What is
before,
that?
before we get off this, we don't have to do anything with that line item?
No.
Okay, all right, that's
we
fine.
get the public works.
That's fine. I mean, with his line item, we don't have to do anything with it.
What is this built-in flexibility at 7,500?
His salaries line item, we don't have to do anything with that number now.
No.
Okay,
When you say, Susan, yes, we support that, then we'll do it.
okay.
Yeah, there's no net
Okay.
change
Built-
overall.
What is that built-in flexibility, 7,500?
Under professional services, it's, we talked about this last time, it's for using the COG for anything that we need, the Council of Governments. Wes was coming down, that's where Wes was paid out of when I wasn't here. But this is for any other services we may need to use of theirs, and any billable hours they'll give back to us.
We don't have a specific service identified. We just anticipate we will need to use the Council of Governments Planning Services for something. So it's just an estimate at this point.
I'm just looking at the bottom line numbers, and of course, that'll change when you take a position out, and I guess that position was added back in, which made fiscal 16 actual of 420 and recommended for fiscal 18, 501. That's a big, it's almost an $80,000 difference there.
That
I
also
assume
includes
part
the,
of that is that position that got put back in there.
well,
The difference between fiscal 16 actual,
30,000 of that's the truck, the capital.
If you,
we've always had trucks and vehicles.
well,
No,
there
this would
wasn't
be the
last
new one.
year. There wasn't last year. The Planning and Inspection Department may need a little bit of a guide here. In fiscal 17, all of the positions, including the GIS planner, were budgeted. However, not all of the positions were filled, and moreover, the planning director's position was vacant. Well, it was actually filled by Susan, but the salary, part of Susan's salary was not allocated to planning and inspections. So as a result, we also had Wes. And if you look at the professional services line, there is nothing budgeted for professional services, yet we spent $51,000. And that was exclusively for Wes to fill the
You're
gap.
allocating part of Susan's salary into this?
No, that-
she's
no,
not.
no, no.
She's saying she's
He
not.
said it wasn't.
No, it was not. We had a planning director, it was Susan.
Okay, I'm just looking at fiscal 15 and 16, not 17. And
Oh.
it's a big jump. It's 150,000 more than fiscal 15,
Okay,
for
let's
example.
let's walk it through. The personnel line, that first group of numbers in 15, it was 311,000. Then it went up 30,000 to 342,000. It went up another 30,000 in fiscal 17 to 379, and it's going up another
See, that's what
20,000.
scared.
So it is going up, but it's going up every year as we expand the services and the staff levels, and the level of professionalism on the staff. So that there are we can analyze it to see specifically why it goes up every year, but without having done that analysis, and just knowing what the empirical history is of the department, the planning department probably has undergone more flux in the last couple of years than any other department.
And how this department differs from other departments, they actually do bring in revenue to offset those inspection costs that you see in the salaries.
Also, I think it bears note that if you take Wes's $51,000 contract services and you add that to it, the Planning and Inspections Department is in fact saying they're going to spend $25,000 less in 17-18 than they did in 16-17, including Wes, if you include Wes's fees.
That's correct.
So it does go down, but obviously contract services cost more than in-house work.
All right, other questions on the Anything with regard to purchases?
Vehicles, I'm no vehicle expert, I wouldn't presume to.
How many vehicles do we have in planning and inspections?
We have 3.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And you're looking, I don't
Have you
want
looked at this one?
to, I don't want to commingle this with capital improvement, but we have in every other department, so I might as well hear. You have a rolling replacement in 2020 for another vehicle.
Currently, we have, right now, we've got two 2007 F-150s and a 2011 Ford Escape. So I guess the 2020 would be the Escape.
The second 2007
Yeah,
would go
probably.
away. Okay,
It's
that's
got-
all I needed to know.
Okay, I was
That's-
gonna say real quick,
that's-
it's got half the
yeah.
miles that the other one's got on it right now too.
I was
so-
trying to see what we were replacing, but you can get 2 more years out of that one, and
Yes,
then
sir.
you
Yeah.
replace it, okay?
Okay. Any other questions? All right, I'd like a straw response from council with regard to this budget.
Fine.
Fine, okay.
Okey
Yes.
dokey.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Good job, guys.
Next, we have Public Works. Okay, as with the other departments, we've heard the presentations before and discussion, and I'd like to ask, let me start out with the one we meant, for continuity, that we talked about with the inspections, the GIS situation. Susan? It's in this department, right?
Are we in streets now?
It'll be environmental protection.
Yeah, and actually,
Yeah, we're not there yet.
we're not there yet.
Oh, it's in environmental protection,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
because
Yeah.
Public
Okay.
Works has
No,
8 different,
All right.
basically,
Let
divisions.
let me ask a question, if I could, of Bonnie and Dustin and Susan. We're all familiar with the accommodations tax and what it can and can't be used for. When I'm looking at the street sweeper, I look at the street sweeper as being used all through town. But I also look at the beach, the glaring place it needs to be used is in the bike lanes on the beach, on the island. And we haven't appropriated any of the street sweeper, which is huge amount of money, to the beach.
That's because we haven't budgeted it. The street sweeper currently is tied in with the stormwater drainage plan, which you
Okay.
all have yet to discuss. And if and when that plan goes forward, in the very first year, it will require the street sweeper.
Okay.
At this point, because you haven't discussed it and the plan does not effectively exist until that time.
But we could in
is
the
not
future
budgeted.
allocate some of that cost to accommodations?
Well,
I mean,
I
once
would-
we spend it, so it's,
Right, we'll analyze it at that, when we get closer to, I would imagine, yeah, there's any number of places actually where it could be,
all right, so we're gonna allocate the expense at the point in time at which we have the expense,
correct.
or just prior to that, but.
Correct.
Okay, all right,
So it
that
remains
answers
on
it.
budget. We're-
Right now, the only
is it-
vehicle in here is half of the dump truck.
That's correct.
Do we have a street sweeper now that we use? What do we use out there on the beach now?
I have a broom that attaches to our Bobcat that just sweeps and just
Yeah,
pushes
well,
the broom
But-
off, just the dirt off.
Do you have
But-
to realize that rotates
Yes.
and shoots gravel
Yeah,
It makes a humongous dust cloud. Yes.
Yeah, but we.
into
that's-
houses and windows
Yeah,
and
so
cars?
That's what we're using now.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Is that something that could be outsourced? I mean, are we tying up all this equipment that we use a few times?
Well,
a
you can
year?
rent it, but you can't really outsource it, because when you need it. And you can't wait 2 weeks for somebody to then become available to come and sweep that street.
How often do
Well,
you
wait-
use that?
Wait, we're not, it's street sweepers in here in the streets, so let's not talk about the street sweeper.
I saw street sweeper being used in Calabash. Is there any way we could be sharing? a
Well,
street
let's
sweeper?
not talk about a street sweeper. It's not part of this budget discussion right now.
We have street sweeper, a minimal street sweeper capability now, but there is no
All right, I
place
heard
in this
what- I heard
budget
what
where
you said.
purchasing
We'll
a street
discuss it
sweeper
when we do this.
exists.
Yeah, this,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
he's just saying we're still gonna discuss it,
Yeah, we'll
but not
discuss it.
quite yet.
Right.
Okay. On the other hand, he's sitting in front of us,
Well,
so.
I know it's tough. I do it, I'm not criticizing, I do it as much as anybody else does. Any other thing, anything else with regard to the streets?
Yeah, just so that I understand it, we're getting 2 trucks?
No, one,
No.
just a dump
I'm
truck.
confused. We're getting
But we're
1
splitting,
truck.
we're splitting it in half into 2 different departments.
Two different fund,
Yes.
two different fund sources.
One out of the streets and
Oh,
one out of the
okay.
PAL.
One is from the,
Half of streets and half of PAL to pay for the truck.
1 truck.
Yes, one truck.
Thank you.
I like the notion of half a truck here.
Yeah.
When you, just for information purposes, is that purchased through a state contract?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Anything else? And any straw vote with regard to the streets budget?
Fine.
Good.
Peter?
Okay, good.
Peter?
I'm done.
Okay. Next item is the public buildings.
Still hate that. You know, we used to have 5 inspectors. We're down to 2. I'm looking at the utility, I'm looking at a line under public buildings. And you may not be able to answer this. We now have 2 inspectors, and yet we're talking about needing this big renovation for $10,000.
Now, that also includes the
It's
vault.
not you. I
Oh,
don't expect you to
no.
justify it.
No, it also includes the vault, to renovate the vaults section where Lisa stores all the books and stuff like that and make it bigger. Also for that, and plus,
And you also have to have an office for your stormwater manager with access to the GIS system and printer.
Where's the GIS now? Here, in this
Yes.
building?
Yes, it is.
You're gonna move it to,
Across the hall.
oh, I see what you mean, okay. Yes, answered, yes.
Why is it being moved across the hall?
Well, because
You've had
it's,
a discussion I have not been privy to, obviously.
that's where the person's gonna sit, across the hall. Not in a different place or different building, but they're gonna put a partition in.
Do you want to talk about the painting? Town hall, police department painting. I thought the police department was doing their own, so why is that in here?
We can't have the police
This is all
officers painting the building.
exterior.
that's the exterior and interior.
So both the police department and town hall need to be repainted,
Yes, this whole building.
which is basically trim, because most of it's brick, right?
Yes, it's trim work on the
It's
outside.
inside out.
But the total cost for both of those is $45,000.
Yes.
Is that something that needs to be done this year? See,
Well, we haven't painted,
No, I know that.
Yeah.
Is it necessary or is it wanted?
I haven't
I think
noticed.
it's, oh, you haven't?
No,
oh my
no,
God,
I'm sure if I
we-
peered closely, I could find it.
We have
but
holes in
on
the
a
wall.
general thing, it's
We-
Yeah,
still-
there's sheet rock, I can't get nobody,
We have-
nobody.
You can't what?
I've had contractors come in and look and they won't do nothing for us.
What?
They
They-
won't
Yeah, we
just
have
fix
fixed-
the
They-
sheet
they
rock.
just
They'll
won't-
fix the sheet rock in conjunction with painting it,
Yeah,
but they
they-
won't just come in and fix the sheet
No.
rock.
I don't get it.
In answer to your question, Rich, is that, yeah, it can be deferred a year, but this is an asset that has public access as part of, I mean, we should be maintaining the fire station
I'm
should
not
be the
saying
only
not
buildings
to
that we
maintain it.
maintain.
I'm just saying, you know, it would be nice if we could spread out some of this cost or defer some of this cost maybe for
Although,
next year.
in all
Renovation.
fairness, Rich, every year there's there are more
I
items.
understand that, Carol.
You know,
So
I'm
when was the
just
last
saying,
time it was painted?
we
Over
can
10 years
defer
ago,
it, but then
John.
there's gonna be
John.
something else next
Over
year.
10 years ago. When it was, when town hall was renovated and built, redone.
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
12
05.
years ago.
12 years.
I'm surprised
Okay.
it's
12
lasted
years.
this
I've
long.
repainted the interior and exterior of my house a lot shorter time frame than 10 years.
Me too.
Yeah.
I've done it when I get sick and my wife asks me to do it.
Which is less than 10 years, probably.
Is this a firm number? Has somebody come in and said, that's what I'm gonna charge you?
Yes,
Are we
we
gonna
did
put that
get
out for
quotes.
bids?
Yes, we will.
Yes.
We will put it out. So
Yes.
it could
Absolutely.
conceivably be less than that.
It
Yes,
could.
it could be.
You never know until you put it out, place it out for a competitive bid.
It's a big number for me. They're big buildings. I appreciate that. But since it's not like hardy planks that have to be painted, you know, it's trim, pretty much.
That's a lot of
It's a
money.
lot of money.
And the
Now,
interior,
Dustin,
right?
real quick, Dustin, the interior, that means these walls too?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
wait,
whole
sorry,
hallway.
you're talking
Hallway,
about, you're
inside.
talking about painting the inside
Yes,
also, the
and-
whole building?
yes.
Building inside
Yes,
and out.
yes.
I think it's gonna be more.
Let me ask another question
We
too,
have a good
while we're drifting, on this. Paving of the parking lot. We have an issue with adequate parking for our citizens here for council meetings and planning board meetings and the like. During the repaving process, is any of that reassignment of spots? Will we improve the parking? Will we increase the quantity? Is any of that being considered as a part of this?
Well, we can consider it, but we have a footprint that we have to remain in with regard to our stormwater permit. And so there, we have to paint within the standards 9 by 18 and the handicap, whatever those standards are. I don't know those off the top of my head.
But we have some
We'll look
fairly-
at it, but we can't expand beyond our current footprint
Well,
because of our
and
permit.
my question really, I misstated it. It wasn't that, it was, were you thinking of looking at it? In other words, do you have some things in the back of your mind that there would be an additional benefit that we would gain by going through this paving and restriping process? Well, we're gonna readjust where parking is or isn't,
We're surrounded by trees, for example, and we have some of these, planting areas and stuff. Do we really need it? I don't think it would change.
well, our footprint for pervious area also comes into
So
play
we
there
could
too,
not
so it's.
pave some of the
We'll look
planting.
into it, but I can't promise that
Okay.
it will increase.
All right, that makes sense.
Can't pave over Paradise to make it a parking lot?
No.
Good thing.
I mean, like, for example, I have to park out here on the side for council meeting nights because there aren't spaces. And I didn't know, the fire chief has to answer that question. Is there enough room for the fire truck to get through? Is there enough clearance? We could probably add about 5 more spots out along that area, 4 more spots. I didn't know if you were thinking of those kind of things in the back of your mind.
This
But-
budget
We
does
can
not
look into it.
envision that.
We're counting on you, Pete.
The answer is this budget does not envision that.
Correct, this is
Yeah.
just for the existing, repaving and restriping the existing.
But if we see opportunity, and I think you know me well enough, if we see opportunity to improve it, we'll look into it and we'll come back to the council.
Other comments? None appearing, straw vote on this budget?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Moving along, sanitation.
Great.
Any questions on sanitation?
Nope.
Straw vote on the sanitation budget?
Yes.
Okay, Bob.
Let me ask a question. You passed out a leaf and limb
Yeah.
write-up. What department does that fall under?
It would come out of, sanitation.
So we're there.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, before we give a straw vote, I think also included in that straw vote might be
Oh, wait a
the
minute.
pulse of council as to how they feel about contracting out leaf and limb.
Well, hang on, is that what's in here in contract
Well,
services?
it was a
No.
handout.
No, this
placed in
is
front of
brand
you.
No,
new.
but what is under contract services?
That's waste management,
100,
Waste-
that's what I thought.
waste
Okay.
industries.
Waste industries.
All right,
Alright.
the question is, we got a staff report on, they're seeking direction on how to proceed with the leaf and limb. There's a description of a proposal. Doesn't appear to be a whole lot of resources to do this, to outsource it. There's not a lot of places that'll do it.
Right. Well, Mayor, I think Dustin's done a good job on this handout today, and I know it just came to everybody, but he's talked about it before, 6 months ago. It talks about what resources are being used right now in our town to accommodate leaf and limb. And my guess is that those resources could then be used for other opportunities.
Well, Dustin, my question is, we're gonna be charged $106,000 to do this. When you're taking your 3 guys off 4 times a month to do something else, have you ever offset the cost and say how much that's gonna save us by letting them do the decks or the piers, or instead of doing leaf and limb, they're doing something else, which we're not gonna contract out, so we offset that price a little bit from $106,000.
What-
Have we ever looked at that?
I think this I think this discussion should not be a part of this budget process, and I'm gonna explain to you why I feel this way. Number one, we need to study this, and we have a number of questions that we should be asking. If I read this correctly, it's gonna cost $28 a year per family.
No,
Yeah,
I
the-
don't,
Per household.
Or per household.
That's what the bid would be.
The bid is
People aren't, people
$108,000
aren't
to
gonna
the
pay
town.
$28 each.
Hmm?
People aren't gonna pay
they're not
$28
planning to
each.
bill
We're not
the
billing the
individual
citizens.
properties.
It's $28 per household.
That's,
what it comes out to, Rich, it's $28 per house.
that's how much
But they're
Brush
not billing
Bandit wants
each
to do the
household.
process, and they would
Yeah,
charge the
I mean,
town
is that
for
go-
that.
Is this gonna be a fee benefit, or is it gonna be part of the overall taxes?
It's a part of the overall tax.
Because there's a number of people in this town who do not. I mean, they have landscapers and they pick up their own debris.
It's not an individual cost,
No, it would
Rich.
be no added cost. The number of $28 was, my understanding, was put in the memo only to give a description of what it is per household. It's not, a household is not gonna be charged that. The question that the rest of the council really has is, if it's gonna be, the total cost is gonna be $106,000 and it's gonna free up other people to,
Well, that's another issue, yeah.
is that reflected anyplace?
Correct.
I mean, is there an offset to this?
No, it's an additional
Hundred-
cost of
additional.
$106,000, which is why I have a big problem with it.
Yeah, well, we
Yeah.
have to find an offset. You know,
Well,
there's a
the-
thing called zero-sum budgeting that we have to be mindful of
Well,
while inflation
But we don't know
is
what, we don't know the specific projects yet that can be offset by this, but they're, intuitively, we know that it's walkways to the beach, it's other things like that that can in fact be used to offset this.
In addition, with the stormwater plan, once you adopt it, a single person cannot maintain, replace all the piping and remove all the vegetation. It'll be a joint effort between the stormwater manager and his employees, his crew. So it's gonna be shared equipment, that's a savings, shared employees, that's a savings, as opposed to, if we go forward, I can almost guarantee you that the stormwater manager, once we hire that person, if we hire that person, is gonna need personnel if his crew is not available.
Well, there's a lot of ifs here, and I'm not,
Well,
we're
Has it-
not there yet. Let's
ha-
put it like this, the bottom line is, right now, things are the way they are, and we will study this issue.
Listen,
Okay.
I disagree with you, Carol.
Really?
Only because, I don't mean we have to vote on it today, but we have to come to a decision. This is a good thing, I believe. If we can understand the cost savings, I'm for this. Bonnie, could you come back later with a cost savings?
Yes.
You know, by June 1st or the third week in June, just to find out if there's a cost savings.
Yes.
One
me-
aspect of that is, that I would like a figure on, is if we've got 3 people working 2 or 3 days, whether it's a week, a month, whatever that happens to be, you know, that becomes a factor that would be taken out of that $106,000 if they're available to do the other work that's there. So that kind of gives us a net savings. And then on top of that, we have a point is, if we're gonna use these guys to go repair a access way instead of contracting it out, that becomes, you know, in-house savings also.
Well-
So
Well, let me-
Right now,
that's
there's
the type,
nothing.
that's the type of information
Let
we
me,
need
let
to
me
be able to
focus
help
this,
us make
let me
now
focus
there's-
this discussion.
Right now, there is nothing in the budget that is contracting out walkways for fiscal 18.
It's
Let me-
time.
Put this in
It's-
here.
We have to contract some services because we don't have people
Let,
available.
let me focus this back on the budget. Is the $106,000 number, has that gotta be for our budget consideration right now?
No.
Okay, let's move on.
That's, I agree.
Thanks, Bob.
Any other comments with regard to environmental protection? We're in sanitation. All right, none, straw vote?
Okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute, are we in environmental
No,
protection?
no, we're
We're
moving that.
starting environmental.
All right, we're now environmental.
So the only big ticket item here is this living shoreline issue at $100,000. Well,
Susan, you wanna?
I round up.
That is a program at the town park. I think I've explained it before, where we put in oyster shell reefs, vegetation, and sill walls to lessen the wave damage and erosion that we have on the Mary's Creek side of the project. I also mentioned previously that Coastal Federation was down here, looked at it, evaluated, said it was a prime project for that type of work. I saw an opportunity to apply for a grant, a 50-50 reimbursable. That has been submitted.
It's been
I think
approved,
if
it's been,
it's going to
approved.
improve the water quality.
Has it
and-
been approved or just submitted?
It's been submitted.
Okay.
It was due
So
May
what's the
1st.
total cost, 200,000?
95
The
or
total
less.
cost.
Yes,
So it
95
would
or
be-
less,
It would be 50 to us if you get a grant.
or 34. Depends on, until we do a bid, I asked them to give me a rough estimate regarding linear feet. They estimated $200 per linear feet.
Susan, how, it's on the peninsula of the park?
It's on the east side of the park along Mary's Creek, from the bulkhead to the Shell Beach. It's about 250 feet.
And the need for it is that that's eroding.
It is eroding, and actually, we requested an emergency repair, but we were hoping that we can get this started, even using some volunteer work, which may reduce the cost of the project. But I can't submit volunteer work in a budget, but if it comes in less than 95, that's what we'll spend.
When will you know about the grant?
Not until this fall.
When will the project start?
Well, I would like to start it immediately, but it depends on people, availability, people.
If you started it immediately, my concern is that grant people will say, hey, you've already done it, you don't need our money, we're gonna do a new project.
Oh, I can't spend any money until the grant award. They don't, just like the state, they don't give it to you post expending it. You have to submit for reimbursement. You can't submit for any expenses you incur prior to the award.
I have a question on that line for professional services. The 351,000 in 17 was for, it may not be for one thing, but what was the general cost that we're not gonna incur again?
Hurricane Matthew?
Okay,
We hope.
We hope.
okay.
Could be
Actually,
more. We were lucky.
Where's the,
My question,
Yeah,
Bonnie?
I think Bonnie's searching to find where the dredging,
no, because we also have the stormwater. Right.
All right, well, it's one of those, one of those projects. Okay.
Yeah, the dredging has its own fund, the dredging
Okay.
project,
Okay,
so
good.
it's just the stormwater.
What would a bulkhead repair cost as opposed to a living shoreline?
$1,000 a foot?
no.
No. Oh my God, no.
$10,000,
But
that's
the-
a lot of money, I mean, a lot of money.
But the point is, the movement toward water quality and erosion isn't for bulkheads. The movement is toward living shoreline.
Because it's for, silt protection, it's for
Yes.
erosion protection. It isn't just for,
Retaining.
Yeah, bulkheads are the thing of the past. I mean, you still have them, but the state and almost every environmentalist probably in the state of North Carolina would prefer that there's movement toward, where possible, towards living shoreline projects.
Susan, does this affect the dredging?
Does not affect it at all.
It's outside of any dredging footprint significantly. It's,
We've already checked on that.
All right, any other questions? All right, straw vote on and the environmental protection budget,
Okay, Bob.
yes.
Yes,
okay?
Okay, and this is where that position would reside?
I'll be back in just a second.
All right, let's take a,
Under environmental protection?
Yes,
We're
the
gonna-
stormwater.
But
We're gonna
it's
take
not
5
in
minutes.
we're gonna
Mayor.
take
No.
a 15-second break.
I'm gonna,
I need to check on something.
sugar in it?
That's probably why I'm enjoying it so much. I'm like, Diet Coke.
It would, well, it would be, what the problem is, that the county acted on Wednesday, and this is what Kelly's gonna tell us. The county voted on Wednesday. They're being, I think you know, I sent out that memo. They totally disregarded it.
Really? Why you so surprised?
And what, of course, we still can't do it because the legislature hasn't allowed the county to raise the
Right,
fees.
right.
But what they voted to do was to raise it 25% across the board for every district, without regard to how it's calculated or anything like that. It's years ago when they set this thing up, all they did is they say 1,000-square-foot building, we'll charge $50.
Yeah.
And where it really becomes acute is on the island, because on the island, you don't, you've got some expensive houses, but there's some that only 1,500 or 1,700 square feet. But the assessed value
Right.
is substantial because it's on the island. And they're hurt more than somebody.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah. See, that's what I was.
and what they're doing is they're mixing apples and
With
oranges.
oranges.
And that's what I tried to point out to them.
No, 'cause that's what I was thinking about last night when I was looking at all this. You know, it's not gonna be, it's just not gonna be fair, is it?
No, and what I tried to explain was this was set up a long time ago. And the demographics, the whole thing has changed when they originally did it.
10%.
And it was a huge share set up to go over to protect their, like, on the commercial, the commercial is set up by square footage too. And the largest commercial payer in Sunset Beach is food holder. Because then it's like, it's the entire building.
Right.
Where your restaurant is, in the front and everything.
Right.
They pay it at a separate
What's the timetable for that?
Most of them are small fees because they've broken them up.
Right.
But when?
Right
Yeah,
now,
I was surprised at that.
right now,
But then, seriously, I was surprised.
Ad was in the paper
You know, I guess I could.
past Wednesday.
How much more the process?
I'll show you.
Run it one more week.
It was so illogical. I know, I thought that too.
We usually get.
Your hard thing is keeping them because you don't pay them.
Well, my experience with the two of them is that Sunset Properties actually
realize that
runs
more.
some Sunset Vacation Site. Yeah, and I
know, one of my
always
neighbors
felt that
worked
they had
for you
their
for a little
houses
Here,
And
this
we,
is-
we went over, we had Sunset Properties for years when we were renting our house. And
This is the total.
we were
This is
not
the county
happy, we
printing
thought we
this
should be
out, okay?
paying more, we
We're
went to
fine
Sunset
district fees.
Vacation.
What was collected
For
was
1 year, was so
164,000.
unhappy with Sunset Vacation.
We
We went
spent
back to Sunset Properties. We
1.5
didn't leave
million.
bad terms or anything, so we
Right,
were
that
happy
means
to go
we
back.
funded
And we were just, we had better results.
Yeah,
from our property tax.
Yeah, no, this
And am
goes
I
up
happy
by
that's a thing of the past?
25%.
This number will go up by 20, and what that amounts to is,
I mean, it helped us buy the
goes
house,
to,
obviously, you know, we didn't,
I got
didn't
the
cost
number
us
here.
anything.
It's 120, 1,206,000. So it would amount to,
Hurricane Matthew never showed up on here.
it's still gonna
It would
be
just be
$4
under
million.
here.
When you, are you still
It
doing
won't affect the
the,
revenue.
And Peter's figured it out, and he'll tell you when we get to that portion of it.
Yeah.
you know,
Figure
I
out
can't tell you
what
how many
that
people I
means
know
on the tax rate, 'cause
that
what
are
I
not.
did is,
That
And
I ran a whole
drives,
bunch of
it's not clear to
scenarios
me, it's not clear to you.
So
on the island
instead
properties
of
here.
421,
Sunset
it's
Beach, I mean,
564.
Well, I'm just saying, but there are a lot of
To
people
see
who are
if
renting
we
their
raise
houses and they are
the
not
fee.
paying the taxes.
Where are we now? We talking about mosquitoes?
Needs were property,
Are you
Are-
getting,
we're
are you
not-
getting it from my old
and the
house?
reduction in the tax
Well,
rate.
We don't want to talk about stormwater manager?
But I
renting
took,
it like
It's just the general.
I took property, yeah, I didn't.
Okay.
I took property.
Okay.
cards, and I went through the
I
property
need to
tax
point out something
Yeah.
before we move on to.
Hey, guys, I think Bonnie's trying to tell us something here.
my road.
Thanks, Pete. I'm looking at environmental protection, and somehow I left Hurricane Matthew out of the projected fiscal 17 numbers. so that will be revised to put it back in there. It doesn't affect the recommended budget, because hopefully Hurricane Matthew won't happen again. But
Bonnie,
it
that's environmental protection.
environmental protection. It was not budgeted, so, so the only column it's going to affect is the fiscal 17 projected number.
All right, it
So I'll
would-
give you a new one of those.
And what about the reimbursement? Where will that be? reflected?
That'll
Well,
come in
that,
18.
that's actually
In
included
18.
in revenue in fiscal 18.
18, okay.
Mhm.
Okay, the next area is
So,
mosquito.
well, hold it though, but, so will that automatic, if we were gonna have a surplus in 2016-17 of $300,000, we've really spent that on Hurricane Matthew, and we're gonna be reimbursed for it in 2018-19.
Right, and this is the reason why we have one of the reasons we have a hefty fund balance is that we do have the money
Those
in the.
fluctuations.
Correct.
Or those, yeah, those
Correct.
rob from Peter to pay Paul, okay, gotcha.
Correct.
Mosquito control. Questions on the mosquito control budget?
Sorry. You're bad again.
I had a mosquito last week, why?
You can really crush those briquettes and put them into a planter?
Yes,
I gotta get some before I leave here.
yes,
So
you can.
supplies seem to have gone in half. Is that just, is it someplace else?
No, the reason why it gone down was this past year, I bought a 30-gallon container. Now it's every other year.
Oh, you
that I
buy it
Buys
every
in
other year.
bulk.
Bum, bum, ba-dum, bum.
Yes, next year, yes.
Remind me to get some.
Okay, no other comments? Straw poll, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay.
Real quick, I have a question, Bob, I'm sorry. I'm
Go
so
ahead.
good. On the sprayer, Dustin,
Yes.
that's gonna be operational by summertime?
Well, no,
Well, August, but
oh, yeah,
doesn't
So-
available to them until July 1st.
yes, I had to order it.
So you cannot, with the equipment you have now, you can't spray,
No, he's spraying.
Yeah, I spray, but it's,
spraying everywhere.
no, it's the, no.
Have you
not
seen that thing spray?
Yeah, exactly.
He
That's what
still
he's
sprays though.
I
That's
wonder
what he's
how-
saying. It
I was
sprays.
hoping we
He's-
get it sooner,
It
Peter.
sprays everywhere. No, he
Yes.
directs it.
Okay. Get it as soon as you can.
July 1st.
Okay, the next item is the PAL bill fund.
What are the traffic counters for?
The traffic counters for us is, when we put them on roads, for us to study the traffic for summertime.
So this is
Well,
so we
that we
can,
can do it ourselves.
this is so we can know what the seasonal
Yes.
counts are, because the
Yes.
DOT only does annual counts,
Hey.
and we have no idea knowing our
that's terrific.
plus and minuses, so.
We
Yeah.
can do it ourselves.
That, okay. Any other questions or comments?
I need to,
Again,
Oh, hold
we
it.
had asked a number of questions about that colony easement thing. It's simply
Correct.
something we need to figure out.
well, yes, definitely, whether or not it needs to be done, but there's something else that affects its placement. In the package of things you got today, you have a revised PAL bill detail page and a revised streets detail page. The reason, the PAL bill had to be adjusted. I'll take a minute while you look for it. In the,
See it.
We
got
we already did the streets, didn't
No, but
we did streets, but there's a change on the PAL bill that affects streets.
That's what I was looking for something new.
That's here, this one here.
So we'll have to handle both at the same time. The easier thing to deal with is first the colony easement. If the council approves going forward with the colony easement, it needs to come out of the PAL bill. It cannot be funded by PAL bill money because it's not on the PAL bill maps.
No, it's an easement, it's not a street.
It's an easement, so in order for it to be funded, it needs to be handled through the general fund in the streets department. So if you decide to go forward with the colony easement paving, the streets budget will increase by $72,000.
So instead of a decrease of 78, it's gonna read 6,000 decrease.
no, instead of a
The-
increase of $16,000, it's gonna be an increase of $88,000
Correct.
under
So
streets.
the streets, the streets department
looking at PAL bill.
budget you just
Gotta
looked
look at
at
the
a
old
couple
one.
of minutes ago
Bonnie, is this
would
something we
need-
have to do? Or does it?
Well, that remains to be seen. That's part of the discussion. If you decide to go forward with it, it just needs to be funded in the streets department, so your new streets department budget reflects that additional 72,000.
Well,
that is
72,000,
not
can we just push Shelton next week, next year rather?
And that's up for you all to decide
Well,
based on your
it
conversation with
either needs
Dustin.
to be done or doesn't need to be done.
Bonnie, what's the bottom line change? Does it
It's
net out?
moving 72,000 from the Powell
$72,000.
bill.
It's increasing our expenditures by $72,000.
Well, the
Yes.
general
No,
fund.
the
It
general
was
fund.
in the Powell bill. It was in the Powell bill. We're just taking it out of the Powell bill, putting it into the streets department. And you can take it out altogether if you decide not to go forward, or you can leave it in there if you decide to go forward.
But it's the impact, the ultimate impact, if we were to do it, is it would increase our general fund expenditures by 72,000.
Exactly.
And
Correct.
it would increase the balance in the Powell fund bill by
Which is
$72,000.
not as helpful, right.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Well, the point is, it's an easement, so it's not a street that we log in to be able to get revenues from the gas taxes in the Powell bill.
Right.
If it's an easement and we pave it, is it paved right now?
Yes, it is.
All right, so we're repaving it.
Yes. Resurface it.
Isn't there a way we can get it into the documented streets within Sunset Beach so it becomes a part of the Powell bill?
On the easement.
Not as the easement.
You're gonna run into a problem here.
Yeah.
I went over, after the last session, I went over and looked at that. There's actually two approaches right together into the colony there. One has a sign that says no trespassing and whatnot. That's not what we're talking about here.
It's the first, as you go in, the first one, not the second, not the one in the middle, the first one as you go in.
It stays closer to Oyster Bay Drive.
Yes,
Yeah,
the first
okay.
entrance.
When I say you're gonna run into problems, I foresee you're gonna run into problems is, you've got problems throughout the town on non-town streets. You've got a letter from one resident over in Sunset Lakes.
Metcalf.
If we fund to pave this, that's not a public street,
Yeah.
you're gonna get
In trouble.
all kinds of problems with, and Sea-Trail's got a bunch of them,
But we don't have easements in the area that they were complaining about over in
Metcalf?
Lake
Metcalf.
Metcalf area.
they're dedicated streets, they are not accepted. They are dedicated when the plat's filed. It's no,
But it's not that, we're not paving an easement that we have. They don't have easements, the town doesn't have easements in that area that would or would not need to be paved. The difference is, this is something that we have an easement in and some
yeah, but
responsibility over.
I think,
No.
I
I
think
mean,
you're
I
gonna
don't
have a,
know.
You think that that's a?
I think the reliance upon the word easement, or the concept of easement, isn't gonna save you from the furor you're gonna receive is saying you're paving over there and you're not paving over here. Susan?
Yes, I just quickly reviewed the deed of dedication and conveyance. The grantee will keep open to the general public and maintain in accordance with North Carolina Department of Transportation standards the streets herein conveyed. We have a legal obligation to make sure that these are maintained and open to the public.
This is
easement.
colony.
This easement.
This is a colony you're talking
Well,
about.
why doesn't that fit into the Powell bill linear footage of streets that we maintain within our town?
Because it's not a town street, but we can look into that further.
Can we name it, put a street name on it?
The Mark Benton Memorial Highway.
Hey,
That would,
If
the-
I-
it would
love that.
it would require a legal instrument to convey it or
If-
dedicate it to the
if-
town.
If I can add a little bit of sanity to this conversation, only because I've been involved with trying to resolve the ownership problems in Sea-Trail and the town with the streets, that's under review. We're trying to come up with a proposal as to really which streets. I've identified 7 different sources of who owns what streets, and they don't all agree. The Powell bill does not agree with deeds that I've read and ordinances that I've read. In July of 2016, Susan had an engineer do a report of what streets were owned by the town, and that doesn't agree with the Powell bill. There are two documents filed for the Powell bill. One is a map, which Susan calls the crayon map, because there's a yellow line that says the streets that are owned. And the other thing that's filed, and this is filed every year, the other thing that's filed is a list of the streets with the linear distance of the streets, and those two don't agree. So,
Yeah, but our goal is at some point in time to get
No,
to a document. That's-
Which is why I started with the
I'm working
survey.
on the C-Trail one to try and resolve that one. This is the same kind of an issue, I think, that can be resolved in the same way.
Justin, I'm going to ask you a question. Does the street as it currently exists pose any public health and safety concerns?
No.
Can a fire truck drive it?
Yes,
Can a police officer drive it?
yes.
I recommend we would defer this discussion till next fiscal year until we can resolve this matter.
I agree.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me, too.
Bonnie, thanks for bringing this sheet to our attention, and I think there's only one other sheet that would fall into the same category, and that's Powell bill, on the new sheet you gave us today.
Right, so the POW
Okay.
bill is also revised.
And that's the only revisions.
Right, I did, in what I sent you, what I gave you on Monday, there was a change in the POW bill, and this gets to Carol's original question last week about how come, I had the capital improvement, the CIP had $250,000 a year for paving, and we don't receive $250,000 a year. So I revised the paving expectations and conferred with Dustin, and he agrees now your capital improvement plan has $100,000 allocated every year for paving, for street paving.
Right.
So the net result of these changes in the recommended fiscal 18 budget, there's $142,000 for paving. And according to Dustin, that will put us in good stead to then only have $100,000 in paving requirements for the succeeding years.
Okay. Any other questions with regard to POW bill fund? Any voice vote, straw poll, everybody in agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Affirmative.
we're gonna
Okay.
reduce the bottom line on this by that 72,000.
Yes.
Well, the POW bill has already been changed. If you have the POW bill fund
Changed.
detail
She just
page,
gave you a new sheet this morning,
Yeah.
Right.
and it's got yellow on it.
it has, okay, so it
It's-
says
it's the
down at
second
the
to the last
bottom,
sheet.
it's revised May 4th, 504.
No.
It's
take
the,
it. Go down. She took it out of here.
Way at the back.
okay,
No, that's total.
so,
There it is, 72,000.
And then
Yeah,
she's
the-
got a POW bill.
so
Looks like this.
the net,
That's the POW bill.
so this budget will stand as it is.
Okay.
Because, right, streets goes down 72,000,
will
but the
go
POW
down
bill
72.
at this point is,
I'm just trying to fix the
Yeah.
sheet that I'm
Yeah.
looking
The first sheet of that would have looked like this.
Okay,
Don't even notice, I didn't notice one like that.
Next,
the next I have is
Sunset at
Sunset at Sunset. Is that under?
do you know why they are asking for extra funding?
they're not asking for extra funding, they're gonna raise more, so they're gonna spend more. Their revenue is identical to their expenditures.
Right.
So it's a net zero,
It's a net zero.
net zero. They, yeah, they're getting, the fees, the festival fees, what vendors are paying, they believe will be greater than it was last
'Cause
year.
right now you've got 1180.
Right, the revenue, you're not seeing the revenue on here. Last year, they budgeted 11,
Say no more, I got it.
okay,
Bonnie, I was
In other words, it's self-sufficient.
it is self-sufficient.
Bonnie, I was here at a meeting the other day, they said they had $19,000 in revenue.
Well, they have a fund balance,
Okay.
actually, and,
That's
that,
good.
so they,
They
Susan,
still asked me for $5,000
Susan.
Justin has
Yes.
one more division, that's
to me.
beach erosion, before we
Right.
let him leave.
Behind
well,
Gumbo.
accommodations tax and beach erosion,
Those two.
yeah.
Let's do beach erosion, because we'll have to
should
bring
mention.
Richard.
Richard up here.
You have to raise it. Hang on, we're not finished with,
At Sunset, I was I was at the meeting, and Karen Joseph asked town council, which I was the only one sitting in the room, for additional funds. And
It's not included in this budget. I imagine if they had a use for it, but it's not currently
You don't
funded.
know why they wanted that?
Mark, was it a donation, like, similar to
Like
the
we usually do.
planetarium, or was
Yes,
it an increase to their checkbook?
Well, Pete, she wasn't exactly clear, that she just said it would be nice, her words were, it would be nice if the town council would give us additional funding. I said,
So it
"Well,
was
doesn't-"
anecdotal, it wasn't requested officially, or?
No, it wasn't.
And it's not,
a town function, it's not a separate,
She made that point, since it's a town function, we should support it better than we do.
but it's not in this budget.
Correct.
Okay. Well, they,
No, I mean, I know what the words are, but I don't, I think if Karen wants, if Sunset wants something, they need to.
well, she's not shy about making her position known.
You know, as a single councilman, I had to vote either way in that meeting at Sunset at Sunset. Yeah, I know.
The beach erosion fund. Yeah,
Okay.
Beach erosion or accommodations tax?
No,
Let's
we-
skip to page-
Well, yeah, we
We
just
needed Rich
change
for
the
the
order.
beach erosion.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do beach erosion, we can let Richard go.
Let everybody
I'm
go to
sorry.
work.
Right,
You don't
Richard
like
is
sitting here?
accommodations tax, I'm
You're
sorry.
listening to this fascinating discussion?
So we're actually on accommodations tax fund.
All right.
Beach erosion.
Okay.
Accommodations tax.
Why do we have a
Which,
secretary?
which we on?
Okay. We don't want to let Richard go yet.
We're
We
doing
don't?
accommodations tax fund, right?
I'm uncertain.
Which one are we doing right now?
Let's please do beach erosion, then we'll bring Richard up to do accommodations tax with Dustin together.
Okay, beach erosion. Questions with regard to the proposed budget, beach erosion?
What is this ADA compliance and easement requirements?
Beach erosion.
We're looking at the east end, about widening one of the accesses on the east end out for ADA.
Are you, would this be an existing one?
Yes.
Is there,
So converting a current walkway into an ADA compliant walkway, we think we can do that?
is there space to do it?
I thought there was no space.
That's the
That's
requirement.
why the easement
Easement.
has a portion of the easement, we would have to request.
We'd have to
the
buy
adjoining
land.
Property
Okay.
owners
Or, yeah,
to agree to give us an easement. If they choose not to, then it pretty much kills the
it
project.
kills it.
So that $30,000 is for the
For what?
easement costs, not for the cost of doing the walkway renovations.
No, it is. It's for renovations also.
It's, okay, renovation and easement.
But, so this
But-
is an amount that may or may not occur if you don't get the easements.
Right.
And if we could do it with town personnel, then it would be less than $30,000.
If we do it with in-house.
But we still have leaf and limb, we haven't solved that problem, so we don't know what the hours availability are for
You
town
know,
staff.
this is so iffy that I would recommend that, this is the kind of item I would say, let's take it out of the budget, go do your, groundwork, and if it's something that may work, 6 months down the road, approach the council at that point. This is so iffy, I hate throwing $30,000
Is-
in there.
The beach I'll just remind everybody, the beach
It
erosion
comes out of a
fund
fund.
is the money that
That's
comes
true.
in for the beach erosion, or the beach protection.
So it
Yeah.
may
Can
wind up
only
going
be
back in
spent
if we
on-
can't do it. I got it.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, question.
Vote?
Is this the emergency access along Palm Cove that you're talking about, or is it a
No.
different access way
Different access.
that
way.
you are yet to determine which one you're gonna go after?
Is, around the 1800 blocks on the east end,
What we believe.
what we believe. We're looking at.
Until we do more survey work, easement work, and deed.
Plus, yes.
I know
That's not,
somebody-
that's not the area along Palm Cove.
No,
Because
that,
then we
somebody
have,
who would be
That is-
very
that
happy.
is a temporary easement for emergency access
Yeah,
only.
okay.
Dustin,
you
why
know-
don't we make 40th Street ADA? It's just, everybody parks out there for handicap, and now we have steps here. I know that's the only thing we could have done, which is okay.
Is there room?
No, because right now, the way the beach is, because Cameron's not gonna let us go past the toe of the dune. And right now, the way the dune is built up on that end, the height is going to restrict us from doing that.
You won't have enough clearance of the
No.
dune to remove steps.
No.
It'll go up and over.
And how about 39th Street? Those stairs are so dangerous. I
39
know the ramp and all that, it's unrealistic, but can we, have you been out there, Susan?
I've walked all of them, and.
They're
and-
tough to
and
walk.
I think the bigger issue we have in the future, in order to maintain any of these as ADA, is we need to have some policy change at the state level to
Yeah,
allow
I was
us
just gonna say that.
to touch the dunes, because right now, the current
Now, you've got
rules and
conflicting
regulations
Yes.
Agency requirements.
will not allow
Yeah.
us to touch those dunes. There's a
The
certain
ramp would go all the
clearance
way out to the water
Yes.
in
And
order
it-
to
and it
make
ca-
it at the proper slope
Exactly,
angle
to get the 112.
without lowering the dunes right in that spot.
Yeah.
That is correct.
So we have, and I think Friday I'm gonna bring that up again. I think every time I visit CAMA, I express to them that this is an ongoing and growing concern, and I can't believe we're the only community with that. So maybe after we get done with budget, if you decide you wanna take some legislative or policy action, we could put something together.
Sounds to me like we're gonna have to get the ADA people together with the
It's just Bob,
environmental
this
people.
community is so old. It's
Oh,
a
no, I
65 minute-
agree.
Some of these access that people can't even go to.
But,
So
but,
dangerous.
but it seems that, you're right, it's got one agency working against another there that
Right.
poses a problem. Anything else on the beach erosion fund?
No.
All those in favor of it?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Are we going back to the first three?
What?
I
What?
hope town council administrator.
Oh, yeah, we haven't done
Yes.
those yet.
After we finish up with you guys.
Now we want the accommodations tax.
All right, so my first question on the surf chair, 1,200, that would be something that would be lovely to have a donation on, but what happened with how many surf chairs do we currently have?
The 5 right now.
And,
Their service life is
Yeah.
pretty limited.
Yeah, they get used, and we sometimes play musical chairs with them.
They're the-
People come
What
in
is
and
a
want to
surf
give 'em-
chair?
so is
A
this
surf chair
replacing?
is the
Handicap.
big tires, no,
It's
they
like a
give us,
wheelchair, it's like the,
yes,
it's like
it's,
a
You're
wheelchair.
right.
it's a wheelchair with the big tires, so people.
And are
can
we
ride 'em.
charging it for that now?
Yes.
Can we
There
stop
is.
charging for that? I just think that's a horrible thing to do.
Well, there's a cost associated with
I
picking
understand.
up and dropping off and replacement. This is
Understand.
why we're not getting the donations we'd like. And of course, if you saw them, you know they're not, it's not like a bench. Memorial bench, you'll spend $1,200 and you know it's gonna last for a very long time.
And a
But
lot of
we-
this is used by our visitors as opposed to our citizens.
Yes.
And there needs to be a consideration of that as to whether we don't have it self-sufficient.
What is
uh,
the charge?
Minor.
$20 for 3
$20.
days, for a 3-day
days.
rental.
3 days.
What,
And we deliver them.
And we-
It's,
yeah.
it takes Dustin's people to do it.
All right,
Yeah.
so this is a replacement for one of the chairs,
No, it's the, was additional one,
for a sixth chair?
yes.
Because we could show you the schedule. Before Memorial Day, the whole summer is almost already rented.
We done over 80 deliveries last year, just in the summer.
Bonnie,
Nice.
how much revenue did it bring in?
It's not singled out, it's been lumped under miscellaneous revenue.
Could you find that out? Because
Sure.
maybe
Mhm.
the revenue
Oh, it
itself
doesn't
pays
pay,
for
at
everything.
$20 for 3 days, it doesn't pay for itself. I mean, just to deliver a
Well, I'm
chair,
saying for all 6 chairs, it probably would, because
No,
6.
because of the delivery, the time. and-
each one's delivered
Right.
individually.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
understand it. Overseas, you got 5 chairs now, even full, the whole season.
It's not a lot of money, especially when the costs of going to pick up, bring it back, repair, we have to repair them almost on a weekly basis.
And
Yes. We
because
do
of
that
all
with
of
staff, though.
Do we really,
We do that, but it is a
do
cost.
we really want another one that we're dealing with?
I think you do.
Yes.
Well,
I think it's a service to
I
the
think it's a
community.
service, they're handicapped individuals, those types of expenses really don't.
Well, I tell you, when you're on the beach and you see a kid in a chair and he can touch the water,
Then we
It's
all
worth
say,
it.
we'll get 10
I-
of them, right?
I think,
but it's worth it.
I think that it ought to be in there in this budget.
Okay.
What I would like to do is, what I'd like to suggest is, whether it could be outsourced to other
It
rental
doesn't pay
companies.
for itself. If you outsource it, Mayor, I think you're
Well,
gonna
no,
be, it's gonna be $100 for the 3 days.
But it would still be a cost to us, no, it would still be a cost to the municipality, I understand that. But it wouldn't take Dustin's the time of Dustin's people to have to make the 80 deliveries in the service.
You mean like give it
We
to
don't need to
Judy's?
talk about it now.
No.
We don't need to talk about it now, because I think it should be in this
Then
budget.
you'll need more money in the budget to cover all of that.
Yeah, it'd be more.
All right,
no.
so we're saying
All right.
we're going from 5 to 6 on the beach in the surf jet.
Any other comments, questions?
Big Belly, I still question whether or not that money is worth knowing that something has to get dumped when you're out there anyway checking on these cans. But if that's wrong, and it is saving you time and effort,
It does.
you know, 1,600 isn't a whole lot of money for the software.
And it does, because if I look at it on my phone, or in the morning times, I get an email about it, and I can look at them and tell my guys which ones to go to, like in the park. I told them today where to go to. I had two in the park to take care of today. If we don't have to go through some of them, it helps me out.
So it just tells you when they're full.
Yeah, it tells me when
I
they
mean,
yellow,
that-
when they're full, when, it gives me different levels of where they at.
Yeah, Dustin, are they heavily used in the park because there's so
Yes.
many of them?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes, they are.
In fact, almost every special event, I've requested that they bring in their own garbage cans because of the volume.
Are they paying as part of the fee thing on trash?
They provide it
That's, no,
themselves.
they bring their own in.
They bring them in themselves.
But that doesn't stop people from using the ones that are already in there, so they're gonna be full. So do we have any fee schedule for trash?
We do, but I don't see how I can, if they bring in 10 garbage, how do I know
Yeah,
who did it?
yeah.
Yeah, we,
You know, I'm looking at if they bring in 10 garbage cans, it's offsetting the volume naturally generated, but we're not out there every day, and people are there from morning,
You know,
to
I can make a suggestion, this is tongue in cheek. At home, the county had an ordinance where you couldn't mix recyclables with, and they actually had garbage police who went around and would go through the dumpsters in commercial establishments.
Can they carry guns?
Oh, we need another position, right, right? Is that what?
We can make that an
Garbage police, right, there
additional
we
duty
go.
for the mayor.
Uh-oh.
Okay, any other comments with
So
the?
you're suggesting
Let's
that
move
the
on.
$1,600 a year is more than offset by
Yeah.
the time savings to your employees? Okay.
matter of fact, I wish I had more. More
Now you
solar
get-
trash
now you
cans.
push it.
No, okay.
Oops.
Okay, other
Anybody have any
comments?
thoughts on the equipment? We've already discussed it. The jet ski, UTV,
It,
everybody wants.
is there a benefit to our citizens that we fully utilize, or even, what's the right word? That we charge to the accommodations tax slot as much as is appropriate by the law?
Yes,
I-
but the overriding factor is that anything left in the accommodations tax fund at the end of each year gets transferred to the general fund.
Right.
So
Okay,
by
so
default,
that answered it right there, because I was
Right.
gonna say, like, for seasonal traffic count, I could certainly make an argument that we're doing that so we can provide appropriate services for our visitors during the season. And that's $1,200 that we were spending on the seasonal traffic count. And that, to me, I said, well, put it in accommodations tax. We have not. We've got it under streets. But you just answered the question,
Mhm.
that if there is extra revenue, it comes to the general fund anyway.
correct.
Any other comments, questions? All those in favor of it?
Well, wait a minute. If there's extra revenue from that thing, it can't be used.
No, the accommodation.
No, the beach erosion thing can only be used for beach protection.
Right.
But accommodations tax can be, there's a, tourism-related expenditures include public safety, fire, police, streets, that example that Pete
Yeah,
just
you
gave.
covered that in that.
Bonnie, can I have it?
Yes, in that email.
Well,
So
let her finish, though. This is key
So-
for us understanding.
What we haven't done is specifically identify the parts, because, okay, what happens with the accommodations tax? We bring it in and we isolate it. At the end of the year, and we spend it. And then at the end of the year, whatever's left over and what's recommended, what's projected to be left over at the end of fiscal 18 is $391,000. So that money is going to be transferred to the general fund. where it becomes part of general fund revenue, which funds public works, public safety, all of the
So
general
our
fund departments.
justification is that we're spending way more than that
Correct.
accommodations amount
Correct.
on police, fire, and stuff
Right.
for tourists and everybody else.
It's the difference between direct and indirect costs. Our direct costs in the accommodations tax fund the beach patrol, but the indirect cost of having this much, having the population expand so much in the summer is an increased load on fire and
Exactly.
police and everybody.
But for example, like putting the 3/4 ton pickup truck in there, it is used for things other than tourism.
Well, it's actually
But-
used to haul the jet ski and the boat.
Yeah, but it isn't just used for that. I mean, it's used to, I guess I want to shut up.
Yeah, I think you want to shut up.
Never mind.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor of it?
Aye.
Okay. The next item is town council.
Great.
I want to raise.
You know, I have to tell you, the council salaries haven't been adjusted for
That's just,
15 years, 20, I don't know how long.
It's not our budget, is it? Do we do the raises? Do we give ourselves a raise?
Yeah, you generally
Yes.
vote one year and get the raise the next.
whatever that is. I mean,
I think the
Yes.
performance of the council needs to improve before we give ourselves a raise.
All right, so
Darn
I'm
right.
gonna tackle a very unpopular subject, which is why boards and things like that have a very tough time raising rates.
Yes.
The stipend that we all get is, it's $2,200 a year, it's not much. I have to say, if I look at my copying costs, my gas costs, I'm not talking about a salary things, I'm talking about my direct expenditures to volunteer my time to the town for this job is high. And that has not been adjusted I've been on council for, almost 8 years now. Certainly in all that time, and in the years that I can remember before that, I don't remember this even being discussed. So how long has our stipend been set at what it's currently set at? When was it established? Anybody know? I cannot remember ever hearing a discussion about this.
I think it's basically in the past been considered more of a public service
Well, and
position.
I
And
certainly
other public
concur.
service things we do, you get no compensation for.
I'm not talking about compensation. I concur that this is public service, but I don't think we should be out of pocket
Right.
for
Right.
our direct costs, such as gas, mileage, copying, and, all the stuff we do. We just talked about printer. Well, who was it, the department that said, how many, what it costs to replace a printing cartridge, for example? It's expensive, and it's not been adjusted. Certainly over the last 15 years, inflation has jumped on some of these items. I'm suggesting, and I will probably be hated for this, that it may be time to look at that number and perhaps adjust it up slightly. That's all I'm saying.
I agree.
So, we hate talking about it, this is a very unpleasant thing, and it's very difficult for a board to do something like that. But I think it's time we talk about it. It's just
Well,
been so many years.
Washington DC does it.
Well, let me do this, we're talking about budgeting, and whether it's, we're not gonna deal with whether it's appropriate or how much right now. The question is, do we want to put some money in a budget for the possibility of that happening?
I'd recommend that that council moves from 2,200 to 2,500. I think yours is 2,500?
I don't even know, I have no
2,550.
idea
I think
what
it's
it is.
22 or 2250 for council, and I believe it's 25 or 2550 for the mayor. I would raise those two categories up by like $300.
A suggestion, what other municipalities have done is provide a mileage allowance in addition to the stipend.
So much paperwork for everybody involved. I
No,
question
no, no,
the-
no, it's not an accountable plan. It would be a taxed benefit. By accountable, that means if you don't have to keep track of the mileage, it's another stipend. You receive another stipend. If you don't have to keep track of it, you're taxed on it the same way that you're taxed on your stipend. That's all. So you would not have to keep track of your mileage. In Southport, council gets a stipend, just as you all do. Mayor gets slightly more, and the mileage allowance is about equal to the stipend per month.
It's an allowance,
It's an allowance.
not a reimbursable.
It's like, for example, Mark and I are going tomorrow to Wilmington to a meeting, and he's volunteered to drive, but he'll make me buy lunch.
Is that right?
But so there are
So it's got
expenses.
the better
I
end of
I
it.
just I don't want to go there, and I just have to look at it as public service. I don't know that any of us are destitute because we spend. I
not the
guarantee
issue.
you, we spend $100 each on
Well-
copy and paper and stuff each
Well,
month.
let's not debate that right now. Do we
I'm
want to put a
just
money in there?
raising
to-
the subject.
Well, $300 each runs out to be about a 14% increase.
It hasn't been changed in like 20 years.
Can we do it as a merit and have Susan?
Oh, for heaven's sake.
Judge
Either you
as to
wanna
who
do it or
gets
you
what?
don't. It's gonna be your issue. I'm just suggesting.
I don't think why we can't look at it, Peter. I mean, just look at it.
Yeah, and then we can
I'm
do a
just suggesting
study,
that
we
we
can
go up by-
compare what you all, what your stipend to other municipalities, but put some money in there now and for further action.
Yeah, I
Well,
would- I
and
would
the money right now really is for our expenses, isn't it?
You're talking about under $2,000 a year difference, is what I'm suggesting.
No, but I'm just saying, if I make $183 a month as a councilman,
If
with my
if I
stipend,
can
that's-
say something about this, I do not want to put any money in. You know, this is what I consider public service. I am not wealthy, believe me. We did this voluntarily.
you own a restaurant.
And if we didn't want to spend all this time and money to provide public service to our citizens, then we should not be on the council. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think we should be paid a penny. But that's me, and I am not wealthy. That's me. So, you know, I would just rather keep it the same. I don't want to create any controversy. There's not one of us here that needs an extra $200 or $300 a quarter. So, you know, we're
I'm raising
again,
it for future councils, not even.
I'm not worried about future councils. I'm worried about the here and now.
All right.
Let the future council deal with it.
Well, I feel that we should, just to cover the cost. I'm not looking to make money, just cover the cost of traveling up and down. Last year I went to Raleigh three times.
If you drive to Wilmington and you have to, you get mileage, you go back to Bonnie and you say,
I
Bonnie,
have
we
never
went.
put in.
You
Rich,
can.
I went to
None
Raleigh
of
three
us
times
have
last
put
year,
in.
never
If I
wanted to
fi-
put
If I
anything
find
in.
out that somebody is, but the rest of us aren't, that's not.
Well,
Carol,
you
I've
have a
never put
travel
it in
budget.
either.
No, I'm saying none of
One
us
at a
have ever
time.
put in for
Come on,
mileage.
let Bonnie speak, please.
Well, you have a travel line, which is where mileage would be paid if you
But councils
requested.
we have never done that.
That's not exactly true.
Some people have?
But it's certainly within, you can. If you haven't, that's one thing, but it doesn't mean that you can't.
Right.
All right, the question is, do you want to put a money in a line, a money in this budget for that contingency that, as to when you're going to determine really whether to do it or not?
I do
That's the
not.
question.
I don't.
I raised
don't?
it,
No.
nobody ever talks
No,
about this.
that took spine to raise it, Carol, and it, you know, it's important
I
that it
said
be
no, she said
discussed, particularly for future council purposes.
There's
But-
there's three no's, so,
That's fine.
anything else on the town council?
Yeah, we need new
Actually-
cars. We need new vehicles.
Actually, what, Bonnie?
On that note, I just looked at the travel budget. In fiscal 17, 2,500 was budgeted, but nothing has been spent this year, so it's reduced to 500. It might be appropriate to increase that.
Well, no,
Not
you-
if we're not putting in. for
Peter
it,
just
so-
can't
Well-
spend more than $500 on that lunch.
Well, it doesn't cover the lunch, it only covers the miles to get to the restaurant.
The facility rental, 2,100, what is that for?
For the sea trails.
The sea trails? Gotcha. But we had one community meeting, what are they charging us?
You've also were at Seaside.
The place we vote.
Actually,
We
I
had-
guess we rented, we didn't have the land this time, they were public. And
Where's
they
that?
We
rolled
had
over
the
convention
mayor,
center.
There
the
was-
mayor public meeting, the council person
Yeah,
public
okay.
meeting.
And then,
All right.
and the public meeting on, at Sea Trail
Yes.
at Magnolia's.
In the
for
conference
the
center.
dredging thing.
Right in the,
And-
Community meeting, the
the
dredging
community
meeting.
All right, any other,
We're easy.
everybody in favor of the budget as presented? Okay.
Aye.
Administration.
Well, this is where that salary study is in there, which I think I would take out.
I strongly recommend it.
Carol,
I-
why would you take it out? Or what's your basis for it?
That I think the information we need is readily available, and I would rely on that. We did something not that long ago, I just don't think it's time, I don't see any reason to do it now, this year.
I concur.
I look at it as $30,000 placed in there. We can submit an RFQ. We don't have to spend it. We can utilize it. We're giving a 3% merit
We
up
may
to,
be
a
giving
up
a
to.
3%.
That hasn't been
It's in,
established.
okay, but it's in the budget for, the projected budget for right now. We're knee-jerk reacting as to whether that's too much or not enough. And I think without the benefit of getting a professional survey, not something that's anecdotal, not something that's done by volunteers, it's data points that are important to us to better understand compensation parameters for our employees.
Well, I can,
Compensation across the board.
I'm in favor of whether it's $30,000 or $30. I'm in favor of, my personal position is I'm in favor of a salary study. I tried to provide, when we were talking about salary increases, I tried to provide, went to the resource where the public information is available. The problem is that the information is only as good as the numbers are only as good as the information that goes in behind it. And if I look at it, I could say what this town does or what this town does. You don't know how long the person's been working there. You don't know what the job requirements are. You don't know what other benefits that person may receive. So you're comparing apples and oranges and bananas and pecans and everything else. You really don't know. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is with a feed study.
Also, benefits are a big part of this analysis, too. It's not just salary, but it's a benefit analysis. And the benefits that we pay right now may be too much, they may not be enough. And there's a lot has happened since we've established this benefit plan in the industry that we might benefit from a
Peter,
professional
is that
survey.
a hard number, 30,000? Is that an estimate?
No, it's an estimate from town staff as to what it will
Estimate,
cost.
and again, you won't know until the RFQ, and we've discussed this, till the people respond to the RFQ. If it's below or above, either way, it comes back to the council for approval.
We have not decided that we're going to do a survey. We've
Right.
decided that we're going to put an RFQ out. This would decide we
got it.
put an RFQ.
Yeah.
We don't have to spend the money.
Well, I think there's
Fundamentally,
there's no harm in
what-
foul sending an RFQ out just to see where we stand
See,
and
I
then
think
vote
that's
on it.
unfair to bidders. You're
Well, they
asking
kn-
for
they know
time
that.
and effort.
That's
If
the
you-
cost of doing business.
Yeah,
What?
Carol, I bid projects all my life. That is a cost of
Carol, I
doing
do six
business.
six to
and-
10 every week. I go out and do it. Doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
mean I'm gonna get the job, but if I don't
Yeah.
give an estimate or a quote, I'm not gonna get the job ever.
Vendors use that as an opportunity to put themselves in front of a potential client and to try to sell their services.
You know,
All right,
listen,
well,
guys, we
whether-
could send this out, it could be $12,000. Let's just look at it. and
Whether
see
to
what's
do
gonna
it or
cost.
not
But you
is,
have $30,000 in that.
all right, what,
If we don't use it, it goes back to the
People
general
look at
fund.
that too.
Rich, you had a
Bidders
comment you
look
wanted to
at
make.
that and they think, okay, they've got 30,000.
You had a comment you wanted to make.
They're, actually, the budget,
comment you
they
wanted to
won't
make?
see it. They won't know that.
I'm just thinking.
This
The
is for-
engineer's estimate is not a public record. And it's, and as a bidding, I've bid thousands of projects. For me to look at the engineer's estimate would be foolhardy, because I could be setting the bar way too low.
Look, if 3 of you want to leave that in there and go ahead, fine.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
don't,
You want to leave it in there?
Yeah, just
Then you've got at least
Okay.
3 people, that's fine.
All right, we'd have 3 people.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah, we have
Mark.
3 people, okay.
John and myself.
Stays in. Other comments? None appearing, then that the administration budget is tentatively approved by the straw. And next we have finance.
Next and last.
The only big thing in here is that financial software, which you pretty much already convinced us you need.
Great.
So, did
Yeah.
anybody have anything else?
no, I think that's a must,
We're done.
Carol.
Great.
Any other,
Finance is done already?
Yep.
Yeah.
any other comments?
Tell us again what the OPED study is. I should know.
It's other post-employment benefits. It's an actuarial study that's required for the audit, every.
So this isn't a yes or no, this is a we have to.
Correct. It's,
Okay.
yeah, regulated by GASB. the-
Got it.
yeah,
So the
required.
only other big thing that we have not discussed is you built in a 3% merit pay increase. And we
Correct.
need to talk about that.
Do you want to do that now or after lunch?
I would, let's do that now. We can all eat lunch.
Well, is everybody satisfied with the finances as it's
Yes.
presented?
I am.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Got away easy.
Bonnie, it has never been this organized.
Oh, awesome.
This is,
Great.
well, Carol, you've been here, I've sat out in the gallery for several years. It has never been this organized.
I,
In all fairness to Bonnie, and you, I love you dearly, maybe our numbers weren't quite as good, but it's pretty much the same thing.
Let me ask you this, for
Oh.
your final copy, would you rather, once we get done with today, I'll put together all of the votes, and you'll have a final copy that will be, assuming nothing changes, that'll be what's presented to the public at the
It-
public
oh,
hearing.
absolutely.
Would you rather have a binder with sections than the?
This is fine, but,
This-
but can you tell me that I can throw away all of my papers?
I'll give you a brand-new
Honestly,
copy
Bonnie,
with no highlights
What you need
either.
is, what you
So-
really need, rather than new pages, although you may want the pages
Mm-hmm.
yourself, is, what's changing is our, the funding pages. The money's coming in, money's going out, and the
Right.
bottom line on that.
Right, so your final copy, which we'll get to this afternoon.
Yeah, and we
The-
haven't done capital improvement stuff. Right.
Correct. So your final copy, if it's okay with you, I'll make you a pristine version with no highlighting, color, and all kinds of things. It'll be the result of all of this. If you want to keep your old pages, which show the highlighted changes and the dates that they change.
I'd rather have I finished on
A pristine
pristine one.
without.
Now, is it easier for you to do it like that, or put it in a 3-ring binder?
This
or
is
other
actually,
binder?
this works really well for me personally. The
You're the one
binder
putting
is a
them-
lot more,
You're the one putting them together, that's.
You're putting
Well,
it together,
but-
I have to
but-
tell you, I don't keep mine in I take it out of those binders. It
Right.
takes up too much space in my file cabinet. So I tend to,
I like that.
Yeah.
I take stuff, but some people you may just save a few dollars.
yeah.
If you know that some of us are gonna
Right.
remove it, don't
So-
give me the binder.
okay, so your final copy then will just be the sheets
Yeah.
in the same order, but
Sure.
with a binder clip.
Sure.
So, okay.
I like
Um,
the green folder.
You do?
Me too.
I do, too.
Okay,
I do
great.
too.
Actually, there's no reason why one person
can
could
clean
have
up-
a green
When you
folder
have as
and one
many
person could have a
papers as I
binder.
have collected over the last 15 years, you'd understand
Mm-hmm.
why I'm constantly dumping paper. I have no more room.
Yeah.
Well, I can clean up my floor from all the old paper. The item that we wanted to do next was,
Salaries. Before lunch.
Merit pay increase,
Well, are we gonna go through the summary page, Bob?
Why?
or do you wanna do that after?
well, hold on a second,
Well,
hold on a
it's part
second.
of the salary.
We've gone through the individual backups for that
Right.
Yeah.
summary page. If you have questions with regard to that, I think that before we go on to something else, we should address it.
Well, you know, part of it's the salary and wages, and just so that we understand the substantial variances
So
in the-
which
in the
page is
summary.
number we're
Okay,
using?
it'll be the total general fund that you received this morning, but we need to make a change because we took the 72, what you received this morning, the total general fund, total page 1, draft budget, 50117 revised 50417.
It's at the bottom.
Okay, it's got a yellow and a pink
Total general
highlight.
fund, right?
And down at the bottom, Carol, it says, draft budget May 1st, revised May 4th.
Yeah, I've got the right page.
You got that? Okay. We need to make a change to this because this includes the $72,000 for the colony easement that we took out.
Right.
So this bottom line is not going to be 66,098. What was that other number? It's gonna be, no, 72,000
It's
less.
gonna go down.
It's gonna be a negative 5,900, roughly. I think it was 5,902, but say,
Something like that. Anything else change other than that one item?
well, the yellow, basically, the two yellow, the three yellow highlighted things are gonna all be reduced by 72,000. So, we took 72,000 out of the infrastructure repair and maintenance line so that 279,000 becomes 202,000. And then the variance
But
number
your
changes.
recommended budget, you're also gonna take it out of that.
Yeah.
So instead of,
Well, it's actually gonna look exactly like what you got
55.
on Monday night. So if you have that Monday night one,
it's gonna be 55, I'm looking at recommended FY 18.
okay, so five.
Yeah, you're right, I've got
Okay.
Monday night here, you're right, the bottom line is 5902.
Yeah, oh, 15, it was 5902.
Mine is 5902.
What was the recommended, total?
For
Fiscal 18.
operating or,
All the way down, well, yeah, operating first.
operating is 59,248.
Wait a minute, these numbers don't correspond
Um,
with the latest sheet she just gave us.
That's what
Okay.
she's changing.
This is the one from,
Isn't that an old?
yes, okay, so this, yes, the only change between this one and the one you got this morning was that 72,000.
Right.
So we can revert back to this.
So we're down
it's,
to 5593.
So the 5 point, the May
the
1st
May 1st
is the.
sheet
correct one.
is the applicant.
55,906.
I think that's the one you had.
Yeah.
That's the minus.
That's the valid one.
It should have,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because the only change was that 72 I
Yeah.
put it in, we took it, you all took it out.
Yeah, so the bottom
I'm
line
not
is.
even bothering to look for it if I can look at this one.
593.
So what is the recommended fiscal 18 budget?
This one.
The total amount is
5, recommended for 5593
5593,
229.
Right.
okay.
Which is,
So I'm just gonna draw a line across this page, 5-4.
yes. Yes. So what that represents, with everything in here that you all have, your straw votes today,
Right.
everything you have discussed, if the budget goes forward in that manner, it will be $5,900 less than what was budgeted in fiscal 17. So that includes all of the capital items that are in fact budgeted. So your capital improvement plan has the two columns. It has the capital items that are budgeted and the capital items that are not yet budgeted. So this anticipates all of those capital items that are budgeted in the departments, and it also includes 3% merit, up to a 3% merit increase across the board.
But there's still significant, well, this is a question. Is there still significant items such as engineering fee for the
Yes.
roof of Fire Station 1
Yes.
Street sweeper, vacuum truck, camera system. There's a number of things that amount to
But we're gonna talk about that later.
Correct, because there are also different ways that those can be funded. Some can be funded in the general fund, some can be funded with reserves already put aside, and so
I
on and
understand.
so forth.
Okay, now how we got onto this, to
So we
this,
started to talk about the 3%.
how we got onto this, well, before we
the
get to the
3%.
before we get into the 3%, we started talking about this sheet, getting back to the May 1st sheet, because Rich had a couple questions.
No, what I wanted to do, Bob, was just to.
Microphone, Rich.
Bob, what I just basically wanted to do, and I think this has been part of the tradition, is just to go through the total general fund, now that we have the summaries, and just look at the different spikes to see if there's any concerns that we need to be worried about in the future. And I said it before, I mean, inflation right now is relatively tame. The CPI may not even make 2% this year. So I'm just cognizant of the future years when inflation begins to spike. Now, the first issue, when Carol wanted to talk about it, was the salaries and wages. Last year we gave 1.5%. I worry about the 3%. I worry about that that good employees, or excellent, I should say superior employees, their percentages increases are capped at 3%. I have always been a paper performance person, and I have always paid our super employees well, and our marginal employees not well. Now, I don't know if we have any marginal employees. That is subjective. But I think my recommendation would be, and it's philosophical mostly, you know, we have money, we have a strong revenue stream. It's totally philosophical. I would like to recommend 2.5%, no bonuses, and no cap on superior performances or performers.
So you have a pool made up of 2.5% that can be used in a more flexible manner.
Yes. In that term. In other words, if you're a superior.
no, I-
Talking to the mic, please.
That's just my suggestion.
I'm not following you. You're saying instead of,
a 3% merit increase where the employees are now capped at a maximum of 3%.
Yeah, but-
It may wind up costing you more, Rich.
well, let's be clear, because the 3.5, it's up to a 3% merit increase.
Right, and he's suggesting that not be capped at up to, maybe you could
Well-
say up to 4%
Well,
or
well-
up to 5%.
Well, he
But
didn't
the-
say that.
But he
the-
said
but wait.
2.5%.
But
But
wait-
the pool
Susan?
is
Okay.
2.5%.
But, go ahead.
If I may. So let's say, let me give you an example. I will lose Lori and Lisa. So we get the 2.5% pool. So that pool is the amount that's allocated to the department head to distribute. So let's say we give Lisa a 1%. That means that I can give Lori a 3.5%, the difference between up to 2.5.
Yeah, it gives you that flexibility.
It gives the ability to go above the 2.5 because the pool, the money is already there. You're reallocating it. We had recommended up to 3%.
No, I know that.
And it doesn't matter regardless of, the only challenge with pools is that when you're redistributing, someone has to do really poorly in order for us to,
Give them 0.
well,
Or them,
if I may
or
finish.
her.
Someone has to do very poorly in order for me to allocate, let's say to Lisa, a 5%.
Right, you got money,
Yeah.
otherwise you wouldn't have the money to do it. Right.
Whereas the up to 3%, your merit isn't based on your peers' performance, how much you can get.
Well-
Does that make sense?
Well, are we, yeah, let me go back a step. We're talking about a policy, not about funding.
Right.
Right
And-
now,
and
we're
today
just
we should be
talking
talking about funding.
We're talking about a
But
dollar
what
amount.
we're into now is policy, and I think we ought to just talk about the funding.
And by the way, there is one thing I'd like to put in there, and particularly whether, we don't know what we're doing yet on a salary study or anything like that. I don't want to raise the salary rate lines. In other words, if it goes up to $80,000 a year on the salary scale, what are you talking
Oh,
about?
you mean the ceiling?
Well,
No,
That
she's
I
referring to
don't
the
wanna
salary
raise the
range.
ceiling to accommodate.
all right, well,
this
that's a policy, all right? All we're doing now is, how many dollars are we gonna put in the budget to do whatever the policy we're going to establish is going to be?
Yes.
That's
And-
what we need to
Well,
worry.
no.
Bonnie, if
Today.
you give everybody in the town the
Hang on.
3% raise, Carol, 3% raise, how much does that add to the budget?
It's what the budget says right now.
I see that, yeah.
Right.
What's that
And we
dollar
did-
figure, though?
It's not,
Well, what, we did the math with, Rich asked what the impact would be for a 2.5% increase, and the difference between 2.5% and 3%
Was
is
the 13.
$12,000.
Yeah, the 13,000.
$13,000.
It's-
And that includes.
That's loaded with benefits too.
And that, right, exactly, and that takes the.
It's
in-
not it's not a funding issue. You're right, Bob, but we're discussing the policy. We have the funding, but we're discussing the policy that impacts the funding.
Well, as
And
long,
it's not gonna impact it much, is what I'm trying to say.
well, then, what I wanna focus on, today we're talking about funding. We're not talking about policy. The funding,
It's his policy.
We can put the
As-
money in there and then change the policy and determine if it changes the funding.
Yeah, but we would have to change the policy because I think Carol is right. We are right now discussing funding, but that in itself establishes that there is a 3%, up to a 3% maximum merit pool. So that, they go hand in glove.
Right.
We would then have to review it to change that policy.
I need to get something straight in my own mind, because I've got a disconnect here with what you just said. Lisa just said that this wouldn't affect the rate ranges, that's only affected by COLA increases if we raise the rate range. But a merit pay increase, I was under the impression that whether you get COLA increase or a merit pay increase, that's a permanent increase to your salary. If you're saying it's a bonus, that's
No.
only good
No.
for that
Permanent.
1 year. It is a permanent increase. Therefore, it may very well affect that rate range.
No, that's incorrect, and let me explain why. Each position has a range, let's say from 45 to 55.
Let's say I'm at
$1,000.
55.
Let's say you're at 55, you're not eligible for any more increases unless the range moves.
you'd have to change
you
the
don't
range.
get the
Some.
3% raise.
You
No,
don't
you
get
have
the
to change the
3%
rate.
merit.
If you are at the top of your range, you're not eligible for any merit or COLA unless the
Okay,
range
well,
is
I didn't-
changed.
That I didn't know. How
Normal,
many employees do we have at the top of the rate range?
part of the,
All right, so this year. that
Carol,
answers
part
my
of the
question.
historical issue was every job has a range.
Every title has a
Oh.
range,
It-
yes.
She
every
answered the
j-
question for this year. It may be an issue for you guys next year.
No,
That's all.
no, Carol, I think what the council has done before, if we had a 4% raise, they would modify the ceilings by 4%. They would change.
No, we didn't. We didn't. We did not, sometimes we did, sometimes we
Well,
didn't.
that's what I'm saying, you weren't consistent about it.
You only
Normally,
did it if
if-
the need came up, and if somebody is
Normally-
at the top of their range, then that's a whole different discussion as to whether they are exceeding their job description and a new
Right.
range needs to be made,
Well-
or as to whether they've, I guess I don't wanna go there.
Maxed out.
but
We did in
it's-
the government all the time. You got,
Yeah,
you
you
got
get
up to the
capped.
top of the thing and you were capped, and you did
Yeah.
not get an increase.
Well, yeah, and that also goes back to the need for a salary study, because that helps establish what the ranges should be.
Yes.
But
But
real
it's a
quick,
different discussion now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John, real quick.
Yeah.
We're talking 2.5, Rich, to 3%, about roughly $14,000
It's-
difference.
It's less than
$13,000.
13.
And we just bought a jet ski for $13,000, but our employees are not worth $13,000. I'm sorry, 3% should be the number, and let her do the rolling scale. If she wants to give Lisa 1%, and give somebody 5%?
She can't.
She's got that
She
ability.
can't. What we're doing right, unless we change,
I believe that 3%
You
cap,
could
if we're
do
gonna do
up
it,
to 3, you
3%.
could do a 3% pool too.
You know, how much did medical go up
You just
for
need-
us, that the employees don't share? Sorry, Susan, I'm sorry.
That's all right, I know your
well,
back was too.
well, let's,
Let Susan finish her comment.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's
not
two
much.
ways to apply this. Either you have a pool where you redistribute, or you have an up to. So
It's the same money.
it's the
this,
same money.
this right here is a pool.
No.
No, it's
Yes,
an up
it is.
to,
We've added 3% to everybody.
but it's not a pool.
It's the same thing as adding 3% to the department total. It's
Yes,
the exact same thing, it's the exact same amount of money.
right.
And this allows either a 3% pool or up to 3% for each individual person.
I agree 100% with what you just said.
Yeah.
This is budgeted for a pool. It is over budgeted for an up to 3% maximum
correct.
Yes.
increase.
Yes.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
Yes. Mhm. Yes.
So if, I guess the point may be, maybe we want to give our department heads the ability to do a pool, which gives them more control over their individual departments, and Susan more control over the department heads.
Look,
Yeah,
if you
they-
all are gonna agree to a 3% increase, that I'd like, personally, I wouldn't agree to it unless we kept it in the terms that you originally proposed. If we're gonna do a 2.5% increase, I'm more willing to look at that flexibility.
But it's $13,000 difference in
I
the,
don't care, this
It's
is
not
an
about the
amount
money.
that gets added to the fund balance every single year thereafter. And that's why, if you go back 5 years and look at what we spent on personnel 5 years ago and what we're spending now, it's a big difference. And we've got to, the only way to accommodate that growth is by hoping that the town is getting more in property taxes and more building, and we can't guarantee that.
Well-
So it becomes harder and harder to make those payments out of the current tax rate.
I understand what Carol's saying is that shows up next year, has an impact on the next year's budget, and next year's budget,
Yeah,
and next
it's
year's budget. But you
compounded,
can't,
Bob.
you can't compare, it does, but you can't compare it to prior salary line items, because this year we had such a tremendous, the salaries from last year are really no relation to what they're going to be in 18. And
No.
for 16, they're probably not, they're probably
numbers
even
are
more out of
big.
And you,
scale.
and you've
The
had
numbers, it's not a big
vacancies, you
difference.
haven't had additional personnel, you've had vacancies, you've had, different skill sets being hired, that adjusts. And it hasn't been like a linear increase of 90% across the board, it adjusts as the person's in those positions.
I would like to have the problem that it compounds, and you could see the compounding because you'll have a steady employment stream. I'd like to see that.
Right.
That's not gonna be reality.
Right. And there are all kinds of intrinsic benefits that you get from having a staff a low turnover staff. You have staff that
Oh, there's
can
always,
fill
yeah,
in
no, no.
when
It-
there are vacancies.
I have a
And
question. How much did our medical costs go up? Because the town pays 100%.
Well, that's the next topic,
Per-
Carol, with jumping, I mean,
No, I'm not talking about benefits, I'm just asking one question.
I'm going to defer to Lisa to answer that.
What's the percentage?
$9.
The normal premium is
A year?
roughly,
That's it?
is
I'm
between
thrilled.
500 and 600.
Per month? So $9 per month.
And that's just for the employees, not the families. The employees
So it's m-
contribute. No, the employees contribute.
So it's basically a little over $100 a year per employee.
Carol, what are you referring to, medical?
I'm looking at the 3% thing, and I'm thinking about things like, gas prices are half what they were a couple of years ago. Medical costs have gone up, but we're paying the full amount, not the employees. In many other
Yeah.
places, the
Not true.
employees are paying that, and they,
No,
Yeah.
you're right, I'm not
so,
gonna disagree with you.
this is something, I've had the same, I make the same statements every year, and
Yeah.
I'm making it again, so.
You know,
I
we have,
would, personally, what I would do is 2.5% with a 2.5% cap. That's what I would do.
what is it?
The,
I
the,
know it's
may I
not-
ask, going back to where we started a max 3% per person where the department heads would evaluate each individual and decide how much of that 3% they wanted to approve. And then the town administrator would have the final approval over that 3%. So
That's correct.
somewhere in there, and to me, that seems to be a very straightforward, simple way. The people who are in the supervisory chain are in a position to make decisions to provide awards, if you will, merit pay increases for their staff as it goes through. And I think that's, it's simple, it's straightforward,
I'd
it's
rather
not that
that.
expensive.
I'd rather what you.
Well,
that.
that's what they started with.
I understand that. I'm saying I'd rather that than 2.5% with ability to go up to 5%.
So would I. And I think it's just a straightforward, the proposal you started with several days ago when we started this process.
I don't know if I have to make a motion, Bob. I think what John just said is perfectly clear, easy to look at, easy to manage for the department heads. And I think we should just go forward with the 3%.
And the figure's in here.
Yeah.
All
Correct.
right, now, I'm not sure,
Bit is important, it's what's been submitted by our staff for us to consider.
I
So
don't,
they feel that it is manageable.
I don't think
Okay.
that, I don't think we can vote on that here, because I think it's gotta be an agenda item. Susan? Doesn't that have to be an agenda
No.
item?
No, we're talking, this is budget.
I know this is budget, it's talking about funding, it's not talking about policy.
When you adopt the budget, the up to 3% is already included. It does not require a separate action.
But to adopt what John proposed, we don't have to notice?
No,
It's part of the budget
part of the
ordinance.
budget. We do
All right,
this every
okay.
year.
So I'm good with that.
All right, everybody
It sounds
understand
like
what he
you're good with
proposed?
that, too.
Everybody
right,
understand what
fine.
it is? All right,
That's what it is.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Understand though, people, that what this is over budgeted then, but we
Yes.
just need to understand that. But I think it gives our department heads the ability to run their departments better.
Well, I just,
It's over budgeted because somebody may not get a 3%.
Yes, exactly.
But Peter,
Exactly.
I agree, but the thing is, the bottom line is it gives them the ability to give the ones with, doing a great job, 3%, and the ones doing a moderate job, 1.5%. And so that will reflect back in the budget.
And what that does
And
is
there's
it
a
tell,
message to
it
somebody
it
if they
shows
get a
them where the door
0%.
is. It's-
Well,
Su- Susan, can
it's
you
a common
assure-
method of conservative budgeting. Excuse me.
Susan, can you assure me so I feel more comfortable that not everyone is gonna get 3%?
I can assure you that.
Hmm?
I can assure you that.
Town council won't.
Starting with Lisa, she's getting one.
Yes. Our department heads are very good. We go back and forth quite a bit on evaluations.
I
Spend
don't,
a lot of time and
All right,
effort.
I
that's
don't,
done. So on the
generally
capital
speaking,
improvement plan.
generally speaking, I mentioned this to Bonnie, and I mentioned it to Susan, I don't know if I said it publicly or not. Just my experience when I first saw the budget requests, I thought, my reaction, and I expressed it to Bonnie, was that I was impressed in the fact that they were as realistic as they really were, and that I didn't see a whole lot of pie in the sky
We've made
requests.
virtually no changes.
So, I have a lot of confidence in the department heads and their management.
Could show up later.
I have to excuse myself. I didn't take a break early.
Okay,
We're ready for a break.
Okay.
all right,
Yeah,
all right,
are we
we'll
gonna
break for
adjourn
lunch.
for a little bit?
For lunch.
Yeah.